Hello and welcome into the VOLaTile podcast, your weekly reminder that being a Tennessee Volunteers fan is a terminal diagnosis that we all share. I'm joined tonight by my good friends, Nick Duncan and Jeff Wright, and we have an exciting episode for you tonight as the VOLaTile podcast has its first ever guest, and it is a good one. Tonight, we are joined by the owner of Bacon Junk Removal, the pork in the infamous Tennessee football podcast, Pancakes and Bacon, the one and only Reed Bacon. Reed, thank you for being here, man.
That's incredible. What an intro. I did not know you were going to hit with the owner of Bacon Junk Removal. That's we love that. Yeah, I'm fired up to be here. We've been chalking it up a little bit in the back room, but I'm excited to talk and be here and felt like I felt kind of special when I got the DM that was like, "Hey, would you want to come on?" I was like, "Absolutely." So
You are number one pick, man.
That's right. That's right. Number one overall, one of one. Well, we're glad to have you, man, and we'll just jump right into asking you some questions. We're fired up to be able to introduce you if any of our listeners don't know you. But obviously most of them probably do. So we just want to get started with some basic stuff. So, Reed, in case any of our listeners aren't familiar with you, can you just kind of give us a rundown, tell us about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, Kyler and I, he's the star, but he's the former All SEC lineman for Pancakes and Bacon. Used to be, Believe in Tennessee, and then went over to Rocky Top Insider. And so Kyler and I have been really good friends forever, and he wanted me to kind of do the show with him. But I'm just almost the fan and the friend version of the duo. But yeah, I mean, I was born in Knoxville. I did move to Nashville. Was there till I was in probably fourth grade. And then moved back here and graduated from Catholic. So played football at Knoxville Catholic and ended up going to the University of Memphis for football. Was there for 1 year, and that was all she wrote. I was there. I was very excited to be there. My goal growing up, I mean, we all want to play professional, but you kind of see the writing on the wall. So it was very much like, hey, let's just get to the college ball first and see what it's like. And I love Memphis, the city. I love the university. I love my time there. But to be honest, I'm a super, super competitive person. And we went 1-11 my first year. They had just brought back Larry Porter. So he was a running back probably in the 80s for Memphis. But he was the associate head coach and the running backs coach for LSU under Les Miles. They'd won a national championship. They bring him back to Memphis. It's like, hey, Savior's here. And so I'm sitting there thinking like, wow, we're 1-11. We're awful. This is brutal. I'm not enjoying this at all. And I didn't really see a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, I was much younger, and not as mature, not as probably strong-willed. And I just said, man, if they're going to give him, 3 years to turn this puppy around, I don't want to waste 3 years doing it. And made the decision to be done with football and transfer back to Tennessee. I did talk with some other schools that had recruited me out of high school. Nothing big, but about going there. I had talked with Tennessee about walking on there, which would have been, kind of like a lifelong dream. And it would have been cool to be on there with Kyler and some of the other guys from Knoxville Catholic. But I think I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm done. Like, no need to do it. And ended up working actually in the football offices for a little bit in their recruiting department. But then ended up just graduating and kind of getting in the real world. So.
Yeah, that's all good background. We were the next question I was going to ask you was about your time at Memphis. You kind of touched on that really well, but I wanted to know what's it like being like a diehard UT fan and being in school and playing at a different school at the same time. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so I think I've told this story on our pod before, but it's true. So it's when it's Derek Dooley's year that Tennessee's playing at LSU. And so that was the year that we ended up that's the year that Tennessee, I guess I can say we as Vol fans, but Tennessee lost because we had 12 men on the field. So our game at Memphis that time, I guess that LSU Tennessee might have been the 3:30 game. So I think our game was maybe starting at 6 Memphis time, whatever the case may be. I remember being in the locker room, getting like my pads on and stuff like that, getting ready to go out for warm-ups and keeping up with the game. And I'm like, dang, like Tennessee's playing well. Like this is hype. Like, this would be a great win for them. Well, anyways, we go out to the Liberty Bowl and we're out there like doing our warm-ups, and they actually have the game on the Jumbotron for like the people that are starting to file in and whatever to finish watching it, because I'm assuming you all know, but if Tennessee plays in Memphis, it's more Tennessee fans in Memphis. Same thing in Nashville with Vandy. But yeah, I'm sitting there warming up and I'm kind of trying to like not show any emotion watching this go down. And I see what ends up happening. I'm like, my gosh, Tennessee just blew this. And I go into the locker room. Now, this is going in the locker room, putting the rest of the pads on, shoulder pads, helmet, and then you're getting ready to go out for the game. And I'm in the back of the Liberty Bowl locker room, the Memphis locker room, and I'm on the phone with one of my best friends to this day. And he's like, bro, did you see that? And I'm like, I cannot fucking believe we just did that. Like, this is crazy. Now it would be a lot funnier of a story if I'm about to like go out and play, like I'm the starting safety for Memphis. That's not the case. I redshirted, so like I'm not seeing the field. But it's still funny, and I legitimately hear our strength coach start doing his walkbacks through the locker room, like, "Hey, everybody, get ready!" You know what they're saying different stuff, and I'm literally like, "Hey, Jack, I gotta go, see you," and like hang the phone up, put it in there, and which also is kind of funny is what was his our strength coach Coach Milo. He was actually an offensive lineman for Tennessee, I think in the 90s, and then played in the NFL. But he was our head strength coach. So he was a former Tennessee guy, and he would always give me a hard time, like if I came in the weight room or whatever, and like the week we're playing Tennessee, he was like, "You want to be on that sideline," or like, "Hey, is it weird for you to like be playing, Tennessee or whatever," and all this different stuff. So it was kind of funny, but yeah.
So. That's hilarious. That's such a good story, man. That's gold. Yeah. So I want to come back to the strength coach thing, because we're going to talk about that in a little while. I want to ask you about just kind of the impact that can have on a team in light of the fact that Tennessee just hired Derek Owens. So I want to come back to that, but just gonna kind of continue with the general background for you. How did Pancakes and Bacon with you and Kyler kind of get started in the first place?
Yeah, and I just realized I didn't even answer the question. I gave the story. To answer your question officially, it was like when you're playing on another team, you were very much like, it's just such a grind. I mean, it's 5:30 in the morning till at night. So I'm not like as a diehard fan as I am now, or when I was growing up. Like, you are removed from it a little bit, but I'm always still checking scores, or like if Memphis was traveling to an away game and I'm not on the travel squad redshirting. Well, my aunt and uncle live in Memphis. My uncle's a huge Tennessee fan, but he grew up in Memphis, so he pulls for the Tigers as well. But like, I'm at their house on the weekend. I'm watching the Tennessee game just like I'm watching the Memphis game, and I'm watching the Memphis game for my teammates and hoping they do well. But yeah, you're still watching it, but you can't be as locked in. You're on another team. About the strength coach though, about Pancakes
the
and Bacon.
Podcast getting started. Yeah.
So Kyler wanted to get into TV and radio. He had reached out to some folks kind of in that TV and radio market in Nashville, which is where he lives now. And they said, "Hey, you just got to get reps. Like, you just got to get on a mic, get in front of a mic, talk, and just try to get better, and then send your stuff out to different, media outlets to see if they can happen." So he started doing a podcast with Believe at the time. I wanted to support him since he's one of my best friends. I would listen to the pods, call him, we talk about it. And finally, about 20 episodes in, he's like, "Hey, this sucks. I don't want to do it on my own. It's really tough. You and I have better banter anyways." And not even banter, because like it was legit conversations about, Tennessee and sports stuff. So he's like, "Would you want to do it with me?" And I said, "Sure, man, do it." And now we're, I guess, 5 seasons in. If we do it again this next year, we'll be 6 seasons in. And as I told you guys, I just love doing it with him and just talking shop. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I got started. We were with Believe for a couple years, and then made the transition to Rocky Top Insider. And yeah, and I mean, I've never wanted to be like a podcaster or media guy. His goals have changed, so he doesn't really have that. That's not what he's wanting to do, is be in TV and radio anymore, and so that's why we stopped going year round. That's why we stopped trying to really grow it, because it is a grind to grow it, and there's a lot of competition. But that's why we kind of just do it during the football season. We've been really fortunate to have people just enjoy two dudes just chopping it up, and so we do it because we enjoy it, and it does mean a lot to us when people reach out and say they really enjoy it. So it makes it worth it.
Well, I mean, it does work. There's some kind of unique combination of normal dudes talking about football the way guys do, but then you bring a kind of expertise from former players, and then Kyler clearly has certain ties to the relation to the university that give him certain insights. Like I know it was an accidental formula, but it really works. It's a favorite listen.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I really do. Yeah, and that's what they've told. I mean, when we've talked with different people, I remember when we were having conversations with Bob and John, the owners of Rocky Top Insider, they kind of said the same thing, like, hey, you guys have a nice natural flow. And I will say, when we started, it kind of accidentally happened where we were a little bit different than others, that it was all reactionary based and talking maybe like bigger pictures. But when Kyler and I wanted to break down games, we're like, well, we're just going to do what we know how to do, and that's just watch film and talk about what we see. And it kind of happened to where, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I wasn't taking in a bunch of Tennessee media at the time, besides when I'm in the car and I'm listening to the radio. I was more national type guys, but like there was no one else that was like watching the film, breaking it down, talking play by play, which I think kind of helped set us apart. I do think there's a lot of people that do it now, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but like I've come to a point a couple of years ago, like I can't talk to someone regarding sports if I don't think they've watched the game. You haven't had to play it. You might not even know it super well, but if you just didn't like watch it fully, and as I used to joke, like you had Sports Center watchers, they would watch Sports Center and then want to talk about certain things, and you can just tell. But I think that was probably one thing that helped maybe set us apart. And now I feel like a lot of people do that because we did it. They'll refer back to, hey, rewatching the game or whatever. So,
well, on that same front, Mac, if you don't mind,
go ahead, Jeff. Yeah,
one of my favorite things when y'all do is the you look at a recruit's tape, and you're like, this is what I'm seeing this guy do. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm more of a normal football fan too. So like, I know very little bit about DB play, although I think it's probably pretty intense trying to run with a guy who you don't know where he's trying to get to or whatever. And then a lineman, that's just something I have no expertise in whatsoever. And so listening to y'all break down recruits is particularly like, oh yeah, I'm going to pay real close attention to this.
Yeah, that was something that kind of happened naturally too, because it was the off season and we're going year round. It's like, dude, what are we going to talk about that's different? And even now, I kind of get away from football a little bit once the season's over, and I know it's from just being in Knoxville. That's what people want to talk about, I guess. So the radio will be on, and it's just like every day it's just talking the same things over and over and over. And I'm like, bro, I couldn't do it. There's only so many times I can talk about Joey or George McIntyre or Faison Brandon. And this, it's like, dude, we really don't know. We're talking about it so early on. And I just hear some of the same local shows just having to repeat and reiterate things. And I'm more, I lived in Nashville for a little bit, spent some time in Memphis, and those are markets that do a lot more teams than just one thing. So you get to hear a bunch of different stuff. And so we're going year round, and we got to kind of find something that we enjoy doing that'd be different. And that's why we would start watching films and breaking it down. But then then you feel bad, because it's like, if there's one that you don't want, you don't really like that much, you don't want to beat up on a high school kid.
Sure.
And I do love Vol Nation. Like, Vol Nation's awesome, because anybody that we would watch and maybe didn't really like, it was always in the comments like, hey, like, he does this and he does that and he does this. And it's like, every recruit is the next best player in Vol Nation's eyes. I was like, all right, I respect it. But yeah, we would just do that because we needed something to talk about that we enjoy talking about around the clock. But then we had some stuff happen that maybe wanted us to stop talking about the recruits and, maybe alter how we do it. So,
Well, one of the things that I first heard from, I can't remember if it was you or Kyle or both of you, but one of y'all said Peyton Lewis has got all this physical giftedness in the world, but I'm not sure he knows what kind of running back he is.
mhm.
And once I heard that, it kind of made sense of like, when I'm like, why is this kid not destroying everybody, And I read a piece where he was talking about being in Virginia now. And I think he actually confirms y'all's read on that. He said, there's just, that system wasn't quite right for me. Now I know exactly what I need to do on this thing. And, what I mean? It seemed like switching schools gave him more clarity on what he needed to be doing. And I remembered y'all and I thought, yeah, this kid needed a lane and he didn't know how to find it at Tennessee. Maybe he's found it at Virginia.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. And so I'll be interested to see how things go for him at Virginia, because sometimes a change of scenery and a change of scheme does work. Sometimes players say that stuff and they maybe really think it in their heart, but it might not change anything. But I'm telling you, seeing Peyton Lewis in person, I mean, there's guys that you see and they'll make you go, whoa, like that's different. And for a running back, I mean, he was built. And so you see these. And one thing I've thought about, especially when it comes to breaking down the recruits, is doing it for 5 years. If we did it again, it'd be going into, like, if we broke down recruits, it'd be the sixth time we've done it. I've really learned to like trust my eyes now, because there were times I would watch and something just wouldn't really make sense. But I'm not an evaluator. Like, I don't do this stuff. Like, I don't work for a recruiting side, or I'm not a scout in college or the pros. But you just learn to start trusting your eyes and being okay to vocalize it. And one of the number one things about that is either guys I don't necessarily really like and guys that I do like, and we're wrong all the time. There are some ones that we've hit on that we were like, hey, we really like this dude and he's been a good player. The number one this year that I was wrong about was Ty Redmond. I watched his highlight film and I just said, man, I don't really see it. Like, I don't think he's very fast. There was just nothing that popped. And then he goes out and he starts as a freshman and, play some pretty good ball. So I'm wrong about that one. But one is, I remember we went to practice, and when we would go, we would have our phones out to try to look at the roster, because we didn't know maybe all the newcomers. And we're watching the running backs do blitz pickup against linebackers, which is a really tough drill to do, because the running backs are just kind of sit and wait, and you got these linebackers that just get to tee off on them. And we see this guy just start popping these backers, and like, good feet, gets good like leverage, like not only laying a good hit, but like a good base, and he's balanced. I'm like, damn, like, who is that? And we look it up and I'm like, oh dang, like, dude, this is Sean Bishop, like the walk-on from Carnes. And it's like, I'm sitting here hearing about him in Knoxville, like he rushes for all these yards, da 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 da. And growing up here, you hear that a lot. And you don't know if it's like, hey, he's the real dude, or it's like his school and all the fans of that community really, pump it up, because there's a ton of guys you hear about and you never hear about them again after high school. And I'm like, okay. And so then I'm like watching some other stuff. I'm like, dang, we really like him. And I remember coming out on a pod and being like, hey, like, I don't know if it's going to be this year, but like, I could see him playing at the University of Tennessee, whether it's, a sparing role or whatever. I'm not going to say I thought that he would be as good as he is now, but that's just one of those things when you're watching these young guys. Like, I just tried to learn to trust my eyes. And I don't think I'm going to be doing it forever, but that's just kind of one of the things I picked up on with watching some of the recruits.
Yeah, that's cool. Two things came to mind as you were talking, especially you, Jeff, when you mentioned that, referencing Peyton Lewis and how he wasn't sure what kind of back he was, and now he's transferred to Virginia and he feels like he knows who he is. That to me is like the exact opposite of Jalen Hurd, right? Jalen Hurd was a phenomenal back here and transfers to Baylor to be a tight end, and then has a. I mean, I don't remember all his stats for the season, but he wasn't amazing. And then obviously his NFL career was non-existent. And it's like, man, Jalen Hurd, I think, had it made here at Tennessee. It was obviously a great running back for us, and I think had he continued to pursue that, he might have gotten some significant carries on an NFL team, even at least as a backup. So that's interesting. The other thing, this is for our listeners. If you're not doing this, you need to do this. This is one of my favorite things to do with Pancakes and Bacon. So what they do is they, generally speaking, after a game, break down all the kind of key defensive moments in one segment and then they go to offense afterwards. One of my favorite things to do is to turn the game on and watch the film of the game while you guys are going through the defensive play, so I can watch what you guys are talking about. Because I played high school football, but I wasn't very good, and I don't know a ton of football. And so it's really cool. I learned a lot from that. So, listener, if you're trying to get more, knowledge about the game or trying to learn more about our players, I definitely suggest doing that. Listening to Pancakes and Bacon while you watch the film and watch the plays that Kyler and Reed are going through, because that's been a huge growth in my knowledge of the game as well. So, we appreciate all the stuff you guys do, and thanks for all the insight and background you're giving us, Reed. It's really awesome.
Hey Mac.
Yeah.
So, just my obligatory better Vol comment. He's talking about seeing Peyton Lewis and be like, that guy's different. He's probably going to run for 2,000 yards at Virginia.
Exactly. Exact opposite of Jalen Hurts. That's what I'm saying. Exact opposite. He's going to be phenomenal now.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm going to love it.
That's literally what I was thinking, is like, it's the most Tennessee thing ever that Jalen Hurts is good at Tennessee, good enough that there's arguably a better back that he's taking carries from that never gets to play. And then we have this other guy who should be a freak, who is mid in the SEC, and now he's going to go to UVA and be like, the offensive player of the year in the ACC. Yeah, it's the most Tennessee thing ever. It's terminal, boys. Well, it's terminal.
Him and Max Gilbert, right? Max Gilbert's going to be kicking a field goal to beat us in Arkansas this year. So,
dude, I continue to say there's no chance he makes it to Fayetteville. He's going to miss the exit. There's no chance.
Do not speak that evil over me, Ricky Bobby. I can't handle it, dude.
That's one I'm worried about. I could just see it now. Max is going to get his clip on us, and that one would be tough. That one would be tough.
Yeah,
that will be very tough.
It feels
like the understatement right there.
Feels inevitable.
And Reed, you probably don't know this, but our listeners do. We were at the Arkansas game in 2024, and so we got to see firsthand that brutal ending. And I remember we were all just so yeah, we're going to win. We're going to find a way to win. And we drive that ball down at the end of the game. Nico leads a pretty good drive until the last play, and then runs out of bounds. So, we're hoping not to get a repeat of that. So
until he channeled his inner Joe Milton, ran right out of bounds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's something about Arkansas, man. It's something about them. I don't know what it is, and that one always scares me. It always scares me.
Mm-hmm. So. Mm-hmm. Well, the next thing we kind of have on deck here, going back to the strength coach. You said Coach Milo, is that right?
Yeah, it was. So his name was like Tom Milazowski or something like that. So we just called him Coach Milo. Yeah.
Yeah. So Coach Milo, you've talked about on Pancakes and Bacon how, he was a good strength coach. And you've kind of already mentioned that here, just his background at Tennessee and whatnot. So we wanted to ask you, how big of an impact can a strength and conditioning coach have on a football team's success, like in terms of wins, in terms of game outcomes? And how much of an impact do you think that Derek Owings will have on Tennessee long term, but more specifically just this year? How much of an impact can he have in year one?
Yeah, I appreciate it, because Jeff sent me some of the questions that y'all were going to ask, and I've thought about this one, and this truthfully would be a better question for Kyler, just with his time, 5 years compared to my one, and then he had a couple different strength coaches, but they really do set the tone. I think that I still believe, in my opinion, the head coach is the one that needs to say, hey, this is what I want. You make it happen however you need to. And that's with all of his position coaches. Whether it's a corners coach or the head strength coach. Obviously, I try now not to get excited about off-season stuff, because I have watched too many things that we get excited about and they don't come to fruition. I still remember living with some buddies, and we joke with this guy to this day about when we hired Bob Shoup from Vanderbilt to come be our defensive coordinator to replace Jancic, because everyone hated Jancic, even though I thought he did a fine job. And our defense did regress when Shoup came in, but Shoup, had one good game. He had a good game against Tennessee. Tennessee fans remember that. He comes in. I had buddies that were super stoked, and then I felt like our defense wasn't any better. We can go back and look at the stats. I think they may have been worse from when Jancic was there. So I say all that to say, I try not to get too excited. It's dude, we'll just wait and see. Same thing with recruiting. You guys, if you listen to us, you've heard Kyler and I always say, we'll be excited when the guys playing for Tennessee, and we've seen some stuff that we like from him. But I have listened to some stuff. I'll get to Derek Owens. With Jim Knowles, I've at least appreciated listening to him. And there was some stuff that he has said that I thought was different, because most defensive coordinators are going to come out and say, we're going to play faster, we're going to play physical, we're going to be violent, all this stuff. So I feel like Jim Knowles actually gave us some stuff and wasn't just total coach speak. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know a ton about him more than anyone else. I did our basic research and looking at stuff on him. And so with him, but I say all that to say, when you go out and you get the head strength coach who just won a national championship, and the next day he's being introduced at your university, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but at least at that moment and now on, like, you're kind of throwing it on the table. And like, that's pretty impressive to be like, yo, like, we're serious about this. We're going to go get what we presume to be the best guy. Indiana, they were extremely physical. They were extremely disciplined. And those are the things that a strength coach can't help. I mean, he's not coaching anything on the field, but he can instill that stuff to, like, you're not jumping off sides on 3rd and 8 in the fourth quarter in a road game, because of how the little things that they implement throughout the offseason, because they are with the players basically more than any coach, because they're with them year round, and then in season they're still seeing them, and then that's when the on-field coaches come in. So I think I definitely believe that they can make a difference. To answer your question about this year, I mean, I would hope so. I still think Heupel has a responsibility in that too, if we're going to be more physical and more disciplined. Because one thing I've always said, like, Heupel's teams don't quit on him. Like, they play to the end. It's just maybe not as disciplined as we would all like in Vol Nation as a fan base. But yeah, I mean, I think Derek needs probably a couple years. And the last thing I'll say about it, anybody can be a good strength coach. Not anybody. Most people can be good strength coaches when you're bringing in absolute dogs. And so, you hear about Tommy Moffitt when I was younger at LSU, and then you got what's his name that was with Bama, and then Georgia. What was his name?
Yeah, the red-haired guy. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, little guy.
That guy brought the juice, though. Yeah.
Yeah, just like freaking out and stuff like that. And I remember
it's Scott something, I think. Scott. It
is Scott. I'm gonna look it up because it's gonna bother me. But anyways, those guys, like, yeah, they can be really good at setting the tone and getting you to work hard and pushing you to your limits and making you more mentally tough. But then again, like, I can go be the strength coach at Alabama when they're bringing in Julio Jones and Rolando McClain and Derrick Henry's, like, those things. So I think there's a little bit like Tennessee still got to bring in dogs. So
Reed, yeah. One of the things I remember specifically from, I think it was the Butch Jones years, like, there were a couple years back to back where we had a lot of injuries. And I remember people saying, like, well, you just really need to improve our strength and conditioning program because that's why so many of these guys are getting hurt. Like, from someone who played some college football, obviously Kyler, you talking to him a lot and him having played for UT. Is it true that, like, your strength and conditioning program should translate into less injuries? Is that accurate? I always hear talking heads say things like that.
I think that's a great question. His name was Scott Cochran, by the way. I just looked it up. Injuries is tough for me. I don't know how anyone can say definite one way or the other. That's just one guy's opinion sitting in his home office. Everyone can argue differently, but I have seen Tennessee college teams that I follow. I'm a huge Titans fan, so it was a big deal when Vrabes was there for 2 years, and we had the most injuries in the NFL ever for people going on, the injury report. And they're saying, well, it's how they practice. They're too physical. They do this, they do that. When I was at Memphis with Coach Milo, he was tough, and we had, tough workouts. But a lot of stuff he talked about was taking care of your body. And that's, not only how important our dynamic warm-up is or the stretching at the end or all the therapeutic type stuff that you can do in between and after practice. hot cold therapies, ice tubs, like all that stuff. So he was very much into that. But until I meet someone smarter than me that's spent a lot more time around or a lot more time to it, I sometimes think it's just like unluck, like just being unlucky. I mean, even when I was a Catholic, and we had some really, really good teams. And I'll be honest, this isn't being biased. This is going to Memphis and seeing all these other kids there, and they don't know how to do half the Olympic lifts, but like I was doing them all 4 years at Catholic. We were just fortunate. We had like a really good weight program for a high school. But being there and seeing kids that like, there were just guys that were just injury prone. They worked really hard. They did everything they could. They would do the extra things at the end of practice, stretching. I mean, massages, getting rolled out, like all that stuff. And like, a dude would have back-to-back ACL injuries, like back-to-back years, or freak accidents and stuff. So for me and injury stuff, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask about that. I think some of it's just kind of like being unlucky, because I would say there's not my opinion is there's not a strength coach in America for the NFL or major level college that is not very much looking into everything about rest, recovery, and safety stuff. So I think you just get unlucky sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Staying on the strength and conditioning stuff, another question that we had. So it seems like Tennessee has struggled with kind of having a bad guy, an enforcer from a coaching perspective in the locker room since Alex Golish left. I just wanted to get your opinion, if you have one. Is it possible that Derek Owings, being the strength coach, could fill that role, or do you see that being more like Jim Knowles coming into the program or someone else? What's your opinion on that?
Well, can I jump in on that real quick, Mac? That's
Yeah,
totally
please.
one of my
Yeah.
questions. I mean, that's coming from people who are completely outside of the program, trying to figure out, why do we have the bad, penalties? And I know we go fast, but like, why are we not disciplined enough? Who's holding players accountable? You know what I mean? So this is just a shot in the dark, hoping that Jim Knowles strikes me. And what I've heard about him from talking heads is that he's kind of chill. He's a little bit older dude. He's not your prototypical like skull crusher. And so I'm just looking for somebody to be like, no, the buck stops with me. Like, this is your accountability partner, and I'm taking it seriously. So that's a background of the question. There's like a ongoing conversation between us that you're stepping into there, Reed.
No, yeah, I appreciate the question. I appreciate you saying that. I think it's at the top. I love Heupel. I've really liked him ever since he's been here. But you don't have, and I've had a lot of conversations with Kyler and a couple of our other buddies that played high level college ball, some time in the NFL. It doesn't matter like how you act as a coach. I'm very much against like the MFers, like the old school dudes that just like dog cut you for no reason. Like I think that's worthless. But that's who they are. That's fine. I mean, I wasn't a guy that needed to be MF. Like that wasn't what I needed. I was going to play my hardest and not want to let my team down if I just respected a coach, and that comes in all ways. I mean, I had a guy in Memphis, he wasn't my position coach because I was with the safeties coach, which was our defense coordinator. But like, I thought our corners coach was a clown. Like, I didn't think he was that good of a coach. He was an MF, or he's just kind of a dick. But to answer your question, it's just, you got to hold people accountable. And it can be as simple as like, hey man, this is the second time I've told you this. I love you to death, but like for the betterment of the team, like I can't let this slide. Like, you got to sit out, or you got to do this, or like, we're not going to be able to play you because we can't trust you. And they can say it just like that. And then you have to go through with it. You can't back on your words, because then the other players and team will see that like, oh, he's letting it slide because it's Mike Matthews, or David Sanders. If it was, T-Lander, maybe he would, a role player or somebody else, maybe he wouldn't get to play or whatever. So I think it's just accountability. And, coaches say it all the time. You want a player-led team. Yeah, that stuff's great. I don't see a lot of – I don't know how many player-led teams you're going to get in college, because I just don't think kids are going to really respond to somebody else on their team, hold them accountable unless they, like, really respect them. In the NFL, you could probably do that, I guess, because those dudes are men. But, Yeah, it's nice to have a coach that has some juice, like get you fired up. It doesn't have to be the skull crusher, like asshole, but someone with some juice, like Mike Eckler, Coach Eckler. I mean, that dude was always bringing the juice, and Coach Martinez was a pretty fiery guy from time. So I think it's nice to have those dudes on your sideline. You don't want all nut jobs, and you don't want all super chill, calm. But I mean, we came from one with Pruitt, who was obviously showed his emotions, and we still didn't play well necessarily under
Yeah.
him all the time. So I think Heupel. I think that's one thing Heupel is like. He's a very nice, chill guy. He's competitive, but I just think he's got to hold these dudes accountable and just not let stuff slide. So
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Thanks for answering that, man. So let's kind of go more like broad picture here. And obviously, share as much as we want you to give. I mean, this is the VOLaTile podcast, so be as opinionated as you feel comfortable being. But just broad picture here. What do you think the overall trajectory of UT football is so far, and looking forwards under Josh Heupel? What do you feel about the trajectory of the program?
yeah, that's another one that I think a lot about. I kind of go back and forth with it. I hate to bring this up because if you all listen, you've probably heard me say it a bunch. You've heard Kyler say it a bunch. But when we went to the very first spring practice under Heupel, I mean, it was tragic. The number of guys that we had on that team that we felt like were high caliber players, and the lack of depth, and we're just like, holy crap, like this is crazy. Thank goodness for the transfer portal. Well, I guess because they a bunch of that's when the 30 dudes transferred out. Thank goodness Heupel was allowed or able to bring in another group of guys. So when we went from spring to then fall camp, which is August, we looked like a totally different team in that short time. So I think for me, I was saying, hey, you got to give this dude 3 years minimum with what I just saw. But college football's changed a ton since then, because it does feel like you can be good almost every year, or you should be good every year, because you can spend money and you can go poach players and you can do those things. And I always think Tennessee is a blue blood, and they are a blue blood, but I mean, we're Tennessee fans, so we probably think higher of us than other fan bases maybe somewhat do. But I really have battled this question when I'm just thinking about it, of what's realistic what's realistic expectations, because you sit here and you think, I'm like, damn, like Heupel's, what he did in his first year, I was impressed with. And then his second year was incredible. And then, third year is what it is. Fourth year, he's in the playoff. And it's like, well, okay, like what else could we ask for? And then this year is, you lose Nico, you bring in Joey last minute, and then the games themselves are tough, because it's like, you should beat Georgia, but then we don't look good in some of these other games, and then we look sloppy, but maybe beat a Mississippi State or Kentucky or whatever else. So I've really struggled with it. But then you hear someone be like, "Hey, like this is year 6 for him." Like, if I'm sitting here saying Heupel's got to hold these guys accountable, and Tennessee wants to be a championship level program, then like he's got to hold them accountable. Like, is there a part that fans are? There's a point where fans can hold him accountable, if that makes sense. And so I've really struggled with it back and forth, and I love hearing people's opinions, whether it's fans, talking heads, former players, like whatever else. And I think you could talk to 10 people and 5 might say, hey, like he's doing well. We need to be happy with him. We were really bad before him. He's had some good highs. He does need to. I think everyone agrees he needs to take another step to go where we want to go. I mean, we want to go to the playoff, every other year, but we don't just want to get there. We want to maybe make some noise, and we want to be knocking at the door. And so I think we all want him to take that next step. But then, people are talking about hot seat. I heard someone just the other day, I was on Xbox Live playing with some buddies, and there's a guy on there that was like a friend of a friend who comes on and plays with it. He's like, yeah, I just kind of hope we don't play that well this year so Heupel gets fired, because I don't think he's the guy. And it's just like, that's not me, but that's someone else's opinion. So to wrap all that up, stop rambling, I really struggled with what I think should happen. But my opinion is I think we're still in fine shape. I do think this is a big year. I'm a little bit afraid of kind of the schedule, but then again, we're talking in February, almost March. We have no idea. Texas was supposed to be great last year. We saw what they did. LSU just signed a bajillion people, so everyone's thinking they're going to be great. But I don't know. What if they're not? What if they're all a bunch of mercenaries and turn on each other and don't play well? What if Sam Levitt gets hurt again? And so you look down the schedule, and right now they're all daunting. But we really don't know. Is Arch Manning going to take that next step? So I think this is a big year, Captain Obvious. But I'm still happy with where we are right now, and we'll see kind of how that changes with this upcoming season. I don't know if that answers your question, and I'm honestly happy to hear what do you three think? Do y'all are you happy with Heupel? Are you starting to lean out on him? What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, that's. I'm glad you asked that because I was actually about to transition us to give some contrast. Jeff, why don't you give your opinion on Josh Heupel right now and how the state of the program?
I was wondering if I was the guy he was talking to on Xbox. If this had been after the Music City Bowl, I'm like,
it was rough around here, Reed, after the Music City Bowl.
It was pretty black around here after the Music City Bowl. So I guess the thing, I do the same ping ponging that you're talking about there, right? I've lived through mostly kind of nightmare scenarios as a Tennessee fan. I'm old enough to remember Fulmer, and so my expectations are super high. And I blackpill pretty easy because of all the stuff we've seen go wrong over the years. That said, this is the schizophrenia of being a Vols fan. Heupel is clearly self-aware that the program needs to take another step, right? You just revamp the whole coaching staff. You go do the kind of thing you're talking about with hiring the top strength coach. He seems to know it. Now, I'm just assuming there's a concurrent sort of, okay, what do I need to do to take it to the next level as a head coach, right? And I think you've got good reason to think about that. The other factor that's kind of thrown everything off is that you look at Indiana and now everybody's like, actually, there's a blueprint. You can turn it around in 2 years. We're 6 years in, hoping that we're on a growth trajectory. One of the biggest athletic departments in the country. So, I mean, honestly, I'm kind of a weather vane about this. If the news is good, I start talking myself into it. If the news is bad, all that battered Vol syndrome comes raining back down. I have no more clarity than what you just articulated.
I will say this when we bring up Indiana, and I kind of felt like I had a light bulb moment personally. Obviously, you guys can think. You can see I think about this stuff a lot, but I do try to reflect on stuff. But I kind of had a light bulb moment. I think I talked about this on our last episode with Kyler. I know he and I had a phone conversation about it, and I've talked to my buddies on Xbox Live about it. But I don't think Indiana is going to be sustained. They're, in my opinion, right now, Kirk Cignetti has done an incredible job. No one denies that. It's one of the best coaching jobs we've ever seen in college football history. That's not hyperbole. That's incredible. Mm-hmm. Indiana won a national championship. So, But I'm not sitting here thinking he's the next Nick Saban. I'm not sitting here thinking I don't like the guy, but I'm not even sitting here thinking he's the next Dabo or Urban Meyer. There are coaches that have won multiple, and then there's the GOAT, in my opinion, with Saban. So I'm not going to sit here and be surprised if Indiana has 3 losses next year. It's just things change so much and
sure.
I think so many cycles in sports that Kirk Cignetti's going to have to come back out. And I'm not saying they have to win all their games next year, but it would be surprising to me if they only have 1 loss or 2 losses. I'm like, damn, he kind of has withstained it because I just think football is so difficult to win, and it's so difficult to sustain and remain at the top. That's why the dynasties in the NFL, it's crazy if they last longer than 3 years. But so Indiana has absolutely ruined it for a lot of fan bases. Tennessee and Miami before this year, they've been knocking on the door, but I mean, every fan base, like Florida, has a reason to be like, dude, we're Florida. We've won national championships in this decade. Like, or
Mm-hmm.
how can Indiana do it? So, I don't. I'll be surprised if Indiana can withstand it again this year. And I just think by this time next year, we'll be talking about somebody else. It's like, because it was, why do you even recruit high school guys? You got to get a bunch of
Sure.
old heads and transfers. Well, then it's no, you got to have just all the old heads. Like, he brought JMU with him. They're a bunch of 3-stars. And then it's, well, no, you need a mixture. Like, I think it's a mixture. You know what I mean? It's, you got to have good lines of scrimmage. You have to have a good quarterback and a good coach. So yeah, Indiana did ruin it for a lot of people, but there's a part of me that I feel like I'm a little sympathetic to the players and to the coaches, not necessarily because I came from that world, because it's not like I was there for a long time, but just I've always kind of held myself as like looking at it that way compared to a fan. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it's just really tough. It's really tough to do, and it's really hard to win. And the last thing is like, I'm not in the building. I don't know
Mm.
exactly what money Tennessee has, who they're spending it on. There's a lot of people that proclaim they know, that are like the radio guys and talking heads. Oh, Tennessee has this much money. They don't have that much money. Hey, maybe they do know. Maybe they are getting their information from someone they trust and know. I don't trust people. I think a lot of people. I think most people are full of it. I'm just kind of like, I'll believe it when I see it type stuff. But I mean, I know Tennessee's a big brand, and I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but it's very difficult to do. So,
That's very fair. I mean, and you're kind of almost talking apologetically about thinking about it as a former player who did that, but like, you got to bring the perspective you have, right? And that's part of the information set you get to work with. I mean, I'm totally a fan. And so I have the highest expectations in the world. Then you realize these kids are kids, they're children. And what you used to be like when you were that age. And, we did go to Mississippi State this year, and we ran into Max Gilbert's dad. And, we were all frustrated with Max Gilbert. But I just felt bad for his dad, because I asked him if he was Max's dad. And he's like, yeah. And he had like a chip on his shoulder about it. And I just told him, I was like, man, we're still cheering for him. Keep your head up. Like, that's a kid. And Max was like a baby anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think you're smart to stay grounded in, oh yeah, I remember when I was in those cleats,
I would love to go back and play I'm 34 now. I would have loved to have gone back and played with my thought process at 27, 28, because I cannot imagine playing a game, because I know how hard I beat myself up dude, I could go play pickup hoops, and I'm still the guy that's like, I'm leaving. I'm like, dang, like, I can't believe I did that, or like missed this or missed that. So playing at that high level, and you want to play so well for so many factors, but then you go home and you're in your college apartment and you pull it up and you make the mistake of just going through Twitter.
Oh gosh.
I'm telling you, like, people just say, I always say, people just talk reckless. People talk reckless. They don't really understand the power behind words and stuff. But yeah, I mean, and I have to catch myself about it too, like saying stuff. I would never say it. I feel bad saying it on the podcast with Kyler. I would never, really tweet stuff out or anything bad like that. I probably have, and I feel bad about it. But yeah, man, being those kids, especially Max, and as a kicker, dude, that is tough. I was in the stands when he missed the kick, and I could feel the pressure on me. Yeah. And I'm not the one even kicking, let alone him. So I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
Well, Heupel should have run the ball, try to get his yards back for him. So.
Yeah. Why are we kicking on third down? I don't know.
What's happening?
Yeah. Anyways, well, let's go back to kind of some player specifics. So we're going to kind of jump into a little bit of latest news here. So, listener, we haven't recorded since the news about Joey Aguilar came out, but Judge Christopher Haggerty ruled that Joey would not receive a preliminary injunction, stating that he is available for the 2026 season. So Joey's out, and barring an appeal, which according to the guys on VolQuest, they said that's pretty unlikely that he's going to pursue an appeal. So it seems like obviously Joey's not going to be in the picture next year. Seems like there's no real avenue for him to get that. I've made sure to mention the judge's name, Chris Haggerty, because he was a Knoxville native, Knoxville judge. So if anyone sees him out at a bar or anything, feel free to not pay for his drink.
Careful.
He's an enemy of the state now. This man is an enemy of the state.
He should go get his. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to interject. Did y'all see that baseball kid in, I think, Las Vegas? I'm confident it was Nevada. Yeah, he just won his court case, and now his JUCO doesn't count against him. He's going to play baseball.
Yes.
Tennessee's. It's just so Tennessee to be like, our coach cares about the integrity of the. Our judge cares about the integrity of the game. We've got the one guy who cares about the integrity of the game.
Yeah, we got a bastion of morality sitting in a robe in Knoxville. It's Tennessee, boys. It's a terminal illness. It's like we have cancer and everybody else's chemotherapy is shrinking their tumors, but ours just keep growing.
We just get turbo cancer.
Yeah. So again, that's Judge Haggerty, everyone. Going back to the question though, Reed, the question is, so now that Joey is out, what's your perspective on the QB situation for this year? I'll give you like our takes, just generally speaking. Most of us, Nick was kind of the first one that's like, hey, I think I want to ride with GMAC and Faison for 2026. Most of us, I think, are on the same page that we think and we hope that George McIntyre wins that job. What's your perspective on the situation?
Oh, goodness. So I was up in the air at first. I was like, I was kind of indifferent. Basically, when the season ended, I was kind of indifferent. I was like, man, and Kyler said it perfectly when we recorded. He's like, I've watched the movie. I know the ending. Like, I kind of know what Joey is. And I thought that was a good point, and it kind of won me over. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. And then I just kind of like, I have no thoughts one way or the other about it. I'm just kind of like, it is what it is. We'll wait and see. And then it starts getting closer, and I'm like, damn, like I do want Joey back. Give him another year in the system, and it's less about Joey. No offense to him, but it's less about him and more about like, dude, ain't no way we're gonna have a true freshman starting. And then GMAC, it scares me. It truly scares me because he's inexperienced, and everyone has to start at some point. So he could come out, be great. Faison could come out, be great. We don't know. That's what's scary about it as a player. Is like, I mean, as a fan, is we don't know what's behind the box, behind the mystery box until they play. And with GMAC, it just so happened when Kyler was coming in town we always try to go to one game together, and he was coming to town. It happened to be when GMAC was playing Catholic. We were going to go to the Catholic game on that Friday night anyways, but it happened to be against Brentwood Academy, I think is who he played for. We go, we watch, and I'm like, he's fine, he's good, but like I think he's a couple years away. Like Kyler and I did not leave that game being impressed by him, and he is very, very, he was very skinny at the time. And I know people talk about that, and some people are like, oh, I'm so tired of hearing about his weight. Tyler Bray was super skinny. That doesn't mean anything, yada, 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 whatever. I'm just telling you, I saw it. I thought he was fine. I wasn't necessarily overly impressed with him at that moment, and I did think he was slender. The very next day, Kyler and I go to the game. We're on the field. We walk by GMAC, this time not in pads, and the dude is a rail. And I'm like, hey, it's okay. Doesn't matter. We got Joey. He'll be in the system for a year. All good. Obviously, I haven't seen him since, but people say he's had a hard time gaining weight. And so it's like, all right, you got a kid we don't know how durable it can be. We've never really seen him sling it. I haven't personally. I mean, the coaches do. And then Faison, I don't care who you are. I think it's nearly impossible for a true freshman to come in and be good and be serviceable at high major level college football. And so that was the reason I wanted Joey back, is because I'm like, I don't trust these dudes. They're the young and inexperienced scares me. So I just happened to catch. I was grabbing a quick bite to eat, and before Lent, so I got on socials, and it has Joey's trial live. I'm like, oh dang, like this is exciting. Like, let me pop this puppy on. And I thought the judge was just like grilling both of them. And all I had heard was it's 70, 80%. Joey's going to get this puppy. He's got a new attorney. This attorney has won this, that, and the other. The attorney for the NCAA, he's lost all these. And I'm sitting there hearing it, and I'm like, dude, this judge is giving it. I texted to my friends because we have a group chat, about 5 or 6 of us, and I said, guys, like, I'm not saying I know what's going to happen, but I don't feel great that this is just going to be a shoe-in for Tennessee and Joey. It ends up that he doesn't get it, and so now we're kind of living post decision, and I don't think you can let him appeal. I mean, Tennessee, like, Joey can do what he wants, but I think Joey needs to move on, try to do something with the next level. And I think obviously Tennessee's got to move on. They can't wait and stuff like that. I think it lowers my expectations for next year. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if we should say, hey, this is year 6. I shouldn't have lower expectations, or if I've just kind of watched everything that transpired and say, hey, like, we got an unproven cat that's going to be playing quarterback, pretty rough schedule. Like, I could see, 3-4 losses on the schedule. So I would like to have Joey back now,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know how you got. Let me say this too. Before the Joey thing got announced, and I guess it was Mac was saying that, Nick, this is what you thought, like, hey, I want to roll with the young guys. And you hear a lot of people say that. My thing to those people is just like, be careful what you wish for. And I don't know, when those people say that, are you okay with us losing 4 or 5 games next year because this guy's just, whoever it is inexperienced, they're learning on the fly, and we're kind of putting our eggs in the basket for 2027? Or, like, I'm not trying to roll a kid out there just to get them crushed and killed and kill their confidence and all that stuff. And, it sounds great if we can get their reps and then they're going to be that much better the next year. But, like, you got to worry about the season and the game that you're at now. I don't think you really have a lot of time in college football now to be building for 2 and 3 years down the road with where we're at now. But, yeah, I don't know. So was that where your thoughts were, Nick? Like, hey, let's just see what happens? Or
Yeah, yes, I'm kind of would like to just see someone play quarterback for a couple years in this system. Like, we just haven't seen that. Those were my initial thoughts. The thing that I'm worried about now, though, is I'm kind of where Jeff is as far as that weather vane comment he was talking about. And I feel like the whole Jim Knowles hire and the Derek Owings hire could end up being like Fulmer's Clausen moment, where, like,
Sunseri.
Sunseri, like, you hire these guys that know a lot of ball. They're probably pretty good coaches, but it's too late. And so my fear is, at this point, now that we don't have Joey, that, like you're saying, I think I can be okay with losing 4 or 5 games if I knew for sure that we'd get to see GMAC like 2 years in a row in Heupel's system. But my fear is the wheels fall off and it gets so bad that we end up having a coaching change. And maybe that's not realistic. I think it possibly could get that bad, though, just because you have a new defensive coordinator. How's everybody going to take to the new scheme? Apparently it's complex. You do have these guys from Penn State that are coming with him that know the scheme. So maybe that speeds up that timeline. But ideally, I would like to roll with GMAC and just kind of see if he can progress for the next 2 years. But I'm worried that we won't get to see that if the wheels end up falling off. I think as long as Danny's there, Heupel's probably okay. But if it gets bad, do both of them go? Is kind of what I'm.
Yeah, it's not great for Danny right now, right? Danny's not playing with house money. Well, can I throw another complicating factor into this, or actually 2 of them? One, I totally believe that Heupel is a great quarterbacks coach, but we've talked about this on here before. I also don't know if Heupel always knows who the best quarterback on his roster is, because he went with Milton over Hendon. Like, that just throws me, right? Milton has to get injured before he gives Hendon the ball. And I'm sure I'd be the same guy. Like, you see Joe Milton, he looks like he's grown in a lab for being the perfect quarterback. I get how you can fall in love with that too. do you have a repeat of that dynamic with like Faison brings all the physical tools to the table, GMAX slender, maybe that obscures what you've actually got in front of you is what's going to produce the best on the field. I think that's a legitimate question we still have about Heupel. Does he fall in love with the physical attributes? The other thing that's weird, and I'm not saying he has an obligation to communicate this way, but the way they went through the offseason with quarterbacks is also mixed messaging. So like, the Hoover kid, we don't know what happened behind closed doors, but pretty quickly they're just not in the competition. And then we go in hardcore on Sam Levitt, which makes sense to me. Maybe you think he's the best quarterback, right? Like that's the one guy you wanted the whole time. Totally get that. And there's a little bit of a disagreement between the three of us who do this regularly, but then you bring in Bo Pribula and like you're kicking the tires on Bo. That felt more desperate to me, right? And so like I don't even feel like I can get a sense of what he thinks about quarterbacks anyway, how desperate he feels about the quarterback room, if at all, just because I thought the decisions that we were privy to were kind of, if not contradictory, made it look like he thought, oh no, I need to improve the quarterback room bad enough. I'm going to bring Bo Pribula in. Oh man, I guess we'll just take the Colorado kid for a third stringer. That's just a weird dynamic. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I actually, to piggyback off of what you both said, Nick, first off, I'm 1,000% with you that I think it would have to get really, really bad for something to happen with Heupel. I think he's 1,000% in this year. I mean, it would have to be tragic to where they won like 3 games or 4 games this year for him to get canned because of Danny and him are boys. That's like that. Heupel is Danny's coach, and in a little bit, I respect a athletic director that's going to let a guy fight his way out of maybe some downtimes. Because if you're just always churning and burning, I don't like that. And I'm not saying I like Danny White, don't like Danny White, whatever. I don't get probably locked in enough to what our AD's doing. But yeah, I like personally, I think Heupel's here for at least 2 more years. I just don't. I think realistically, if I had to put some money on it, we probably do fine this year. Maybe win 1 game we shouldn't, which everyone's pumped about, and then we lose 1 we shouldn't. Maybe 4 losses, whatever, and then it's going into the next year, and that's when the seat's really hot. And then Jeff, kind of what you're saying, I don't know if anyone can remotely tell you with like a very confident that they knew what Tennessee wanted to do quarterback wise, and that the actions tell us something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're going after, like, what happens if we land Sam Levitt or one of these other guys? Then does that mean they've already told Joey, like, hey, you can kind of, like, if you get your appeal, like, it's not going to be here with us? And he's got to go, he won for another year, but now he's going to go play for someone else for a year because of the money that you maybe spent on someone else coming in. And then it's like, fans will be like, oh shit, like they don't believe in GMAC or Faison, because if they did, they wouldn't be bringing somebody else in. It's like, well, maybe not. Maybe they like those dudes, but they just want competition because these coaches are sitting there knowing, like, every day I wake up, the fire is hot and I have to win no matter what, because these coaches are getting blown out after 2 years. I want to stay here. I'm competitive. I want to win. So give me 5 quarterbacks. Like, I don't care. So I don't think we can read too much into what they did. I mean, I guess if they just didn't try anything to go get anyone and just immediately got the guy from Colorado off the rip, we're like, okay, well, I guess they just wanted depth. But so yeah, I agree with both those, or 2 of those things that that you all mentioned.
Well, I think another thing too that just shows why I think Joey, if it could have happened, was ultimately the best option, is because the closest comparison we have is Hendon Hooker in 2021, which again he didn't start the season, but he got a lot of playing time in 2021 after Joe Milton goes down against Pitt. And then, in 2022, we have the best season in Tennessee since 2006 or something. And, I just think that Joey would have taken a huge step. This is, again, just speculation, but I think he would have taken a big step being a year two guy that had a full season of starting, and now he's getting another whole season. That, to me, it's almost not even a conversation that Joey was clearly the best option if you could get him. But now that you can't, I really, to sympathize with Jeff here, I'm worried about Heupel rolling with Faison because of his skill set and abilities. And, Reed, you can speak to this more than I can, but to me, it's just got to matter that George McIntyre was in the system, even though he wasn't playing for an entire year. And I heard a VolQuest guy just this week, I think, say, maybe that doesn't matter because we saw Joey come in the spring and learn the whole system in a few months and was, pretty good, all things considered, at quarterback this year. And I'm just like, yeah, maybe it doesn't take that long. And because Heupel's able to cater the offense to the quarterback so much and is able to simplify reads and things like that, Faison can come in and just pick it up and be the guy. But I'm worried that we're going to end up rolling with Faison because of his attributes whenever George is actually maybe the better quarterback suited for the 2026 season. So that was just kind of my thoughts about the Joey situation.
Yeah, no, and there is a part of me that wants to be optimistic. Like when I'm talking with Kyler, and Kyler's like, I've seen this song and dance before with Joey. Like, let's keep it moving. And those turnovers that were monumental, like Joey just didn't turn it over. Like they were big time turnover plays.
That's fair.
Those still really stick with me and scare me. But I want to believe like you, like, hey, year two, he's a year older. He's another year in the system. There was a lot of really good stuff he did that there could be one more step. Kyler and I always want to argue that each year a player's in the program, they need to take that step to continue to grow because you're always going to be better, your junior and senior year than you are with, your freshman, sophomore year, unless you're, a freak show. So there's a part of me that wants to believe that, Mac, and like it would have been cool to see Joey in year two. And I would just hopefully that maybe the monumental turnovers only happened in one game and not two. So, but I'll say this, kind of us talking tonight and getting the brainwaves thinking about all this stuff. I don't know if Coach Heupel knows who his quarterback's going to be next year. I think it would be unfair for us to I don't think the quarterback for Tennessee has been won yet because they still have all the stuff that they're going on right now. They'll be at spring practice, and then they got all summer and fall camp. So maybe Coach Heupel's sitting where he's sitting right now and he has an idea of who he thinks might win it, but I don't think anyone knows because I think they're going to have to go out and someone's going to – I think he hopes, like we all hope, someone goes out there and just takes it and balls out and plays really well in practice and runs with it. I was halfway joking, but also half serious, like with some buddies the other night. I'm talking like I'm not going to be surprised if this kid from Colorado plays some. Very, very limited, very limited. I'm talking like I'm on the treadmill – watching some of his stuff from Colorado, and there's just things that I see there that I'm like, hell, he looks better than when Hendon Hooker came from Virginia Tech. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about measurables and sizes and all this stuff, but like he at least has a guy in the building that has played college football and has got some, what I would say, he's got some stuff to his game. Like I'm just not like. I'm just like leaving it out on the table. Obviously, GMAC and Faison, much higher ceiling guys, higher recruits, but like it's not going to surprise me if Heupel's like, damn, like this guy puts it where he's supposed to put it when I want him to put it there, does what he needs to do. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm an idiot, but I'm just not going to be surprised. So,
yeah. Well, let's kind of move on to the next thing here. We want to respect your time. We appreciate you being here with us. So, Reed, you specifically, and Nick and I talked, we did a live episode a couple weeks ago, and we kind of landed on realistically looking at the schedule. Obviously, there's a ton of things we don't know, but it feels like this season is likely going to be like 7 wins. Like that's kind of where we kind of camped out in that live episode. But I want to know just your personal opinion. Like, how would you define a good season for Tennessee in 2026, Reed?
Just what my eyes tell me, what I watch. I'm kind of like, hey, what a good season for me is like, let's beat a team that we're not favored to beat to show that we can rise to that level, that our coaches can get our players to play better than what's projected. The nature of the beast, you're probably going to lose one that you shouldn't. So let's leave it at one. Like if it's a road game that you're favored, but everyone knows how it goes in college football, that there's usually an upset here and there. Each team usually takes one bad loss a year. Even the good ones, that are fighting for playoffs, there's usually an upset. So beat someone you're not supposed to and keep the losses to like that one game. And then let's just hope that they handle business in all the other ones. Maybe if it's a 50-50 toss-up game, you win one, you lose one. So you're at maybe 2 losses there. I want my eyes to show me that I feel that Tennessee maybe got beat because the other team had better players, but it wasn't like we didn't shoot ourselves in the foot. We didn't give games away. We're well coached. Maybe we're a little bit more disciplined, and we can feel good. Maybe all of VOLNation gets happy. GMAC goes out. He plays pretty well, and we see potential going into next year. Like that's for me a successful season. Is I want it to feel good and optimistic going into next year. Let us have a great Saturday night where we got a big win against LSU. Say LSU's coming in here, they're favored by 4.5, but we end up beating them. And then, we're going to Arkansas and maybe we're favored by 6 or 7 going there, and maybe they end up beating us on, a last second thing. Like not ideal, not what we want, but you can understand why it happened. And then, let us clip off one more, big game type deal. That's just for me. So I'm not even giving you an overall record because I think our eyes do matter. I think some stuff has to matter. Like looking at this year, some people can be like, this year was kind of a waste. Like nothing really happened. It's like, well, I mean, we at least did win in Florida. Florida wasn't very good, but we all joke about battered Vol syndrome. Well, it didn't happen this year. We went down there and worked them for 4 quarters. We could have hung 60 on them if we wanted to. And people can say, well, they're not any good. That's not even a ranked win. I get all that. But I watched what happened. I saw the season played out. I'm not saying it's a success, but it's like, that is something that was good, in my opinion. So just like kind of what my eyes tell me, and I want it to be on a trajectory. For example, Illinois, that game, that was brutal. And I understand why Tennessee fans were pissed because I'm sitting there watching that game. I'm like, dude, we're getting just shoved around by a mediocre, Big Ten team. Like, I'm not cool with that. And maybe that's us being fans and we have a wrong sense of who we are and who Illinois was. Who knows? But it wasn't a good it didn't feel good. So,
yeah.
No,
well, I think
it didn't feel good.
Go ahead, Nick. My bad.
I was just going to say it didn't feel good and it didn't look good, like you said. Like there is an eye test thing, and I kind of agree with what you're saying, what you said early on in the pod. Like Josh Heupel's teams typically don't quit on him, and they seem to play for him. That's like one of the few games where I kind of felt like they lost a little bit of juice down the stretch, where it kind of felt like they rolled over a little bit. But as far as your predictions go, we will beat Arkansas on the road this year because we will not be there. My friend group, we do not fare well on the road, and we're planning on going to South Carolina. So go ahead and chalk that one up for a fat L this year. So
yeah. I could totally see us losing at South Carolina.
Me too. I would bet a lot of money on it.
Beamer's going to be on his last leg, and heck, we saw it last year, dude. There were Beamer was a 3 or 4 win team, and they should have beaten Texas A&M. It's just, Beamer's got NFL talent on that team, and you just never know who's going to show up to play. That's why it truly is cliche, but it's like it's a week to week thing, and that's why I just have to trust my eyes. What do the 3 of y'all say? Like what would you all be happy with wins wise?
I think 8 wins would be a success this year to me. I think that schedule is brutal, and kind of like you said, I think they're probably going to be a team or 2 that are better than what you think, and probably a couple of those teams that I think are going to be really good that probably aren't quite as good. But I think if you in your scenario, I think you're right. If you drop one, you shouldn't, and you win one, you shouldn't. There's probably 3 teams that are legitimately just better than you on paper that are going to be favored and get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to jump off that, I think I agree. 8 wins to success. I feel like 7-5 is probably more likely. But to me, if you told me that we're going to go 8-4 with losses to Georgia, Bama, LSU, and Texas, I'm taking that right now. Right now, I'm taking that.
Yeah, I need to go look at the schedule again and kind of look at it. But like, I'm not going to be surprised if Texas comes in here early on and we beat them. I'm just not. And then that gets us all fired up. And then later in the season, we go to South Carolina and lose. Like that would not surprise me at all. I mean, it's always so easy as a fan to be like, oh, well, we'll beat all these teams because they're not very good, and all these teams are supposed to be the good teams. So we'll lose to them. Like it just never ends up really working out that way.
Yep.
I guess maybe this year it kind of did, but
but you had the Georgia game get everybody really, just super high expectations. I lowered mine when Joey wasn't eligible, but I'm really sympathetic to something I think was kind of a theme of what you were saying, Reed, that I think I would legitimately see. I think I would feel satisfaction if I saw Tennessee stop beating themselves, right? So if the win-loss record doesn't look as good as I want, but we just got outplayed by a better team. We didn't do much to shoot ourselves in the foot. We didn't make stupid decisions, stupid penalties, bad clock management. I guess I probably would be pretty satisfied with that because you feel like then, all the screws are tightened down. We've got the basics, the grammar of discipline down. Now we can actually build without the thought that we're going to kill ourselves in a crucial moment. That probably would be satisfying.
I'd probably count it as a success if we don't throw to the tight end out of the jumbo set right before halftime.
Too soon, man. Too soon.
Yeah. Well, the last question we kind of have for you here, Reed, and then we're going to kind of get into our usual stuff, which we'd love for you to hang around if you can. I know it's late in the Eastern time zone there, but it's kind of a fun one, just kind of a general. We just want to get your take on this. But who's your favorite VFL of all time and why?
Oh, that's easy. Kyler Kerberson, 77.
What if we take Kyler off the table? What if
no Kyler. Yeah.
It's also easy. It's Al Wilson.
Yeah, man.
Hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm plugging this puppy in. Let me see here. It's Al Wilson.
Well, I don't know if
listener, we just lost Reed. He might have died right before. We've kind of already given you our VFLs. I think yours is also Al Wilson, is it not?
Yeah, man. I'm a big Al Wilson fan. Yeah.
Okay. And then Nick, Leonard Little, is that right? Leonard Little is your favorite?
Yeah, baby.
Okay.
Yeah, baby.
And then mine's the Iceman, Casey Clausen. While we're waiting on Reed, he might be able to get back on. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Maybe we'll buy Reed a minute if he can get back on. But you're neglecting maybe the greatest moment in VOLaTile pod history. Because Nick said, when Nick talked about Leonard Little being his favorite VFL, he said he just loved watching him run over people.
Oh, yeah, true. Dude, that's an all-time moment.
I think I said something about that, particularly that there's that ice-cold picture of him just standing over that Auburn player's dead body.
Yeah,
that he killed.
Yeah, that detail really wrapped it home. It was like an intentional use of poor words, I guess, is what it was. But yeah, hey, Reed's back, listener. Everyone, he's here.
Welcome back.
I've never had it to where I plug the charger in and then it dies. That doesn't make much sense. But
you've never been on this podcast, bro.
Technology does what it wants. Okay, so hopefully it doesn't cut me off. Easy, Al Wilson. From a young age, I've always more been a defensive guy. I always watch games with my pops. Still watch games with my dad, and I just remember being younger. Because my first game ever going was '98 Florida, so very cool that was my first game ever. But just watching 27 and everything about him, I just loved, and I always wanted to be like that enforcer, that leader. I just thought he was a dog, and I just that's who I loved, and I always wanted to be 27, and was never really big enough until my senior year of high school to play linebacker, and loved it, cherished it. That time of getting to do that. But yeah, Al Wilson, easy.
Nice. Yeah. While we were waiting on you, we weren't sure if you were going to be able to get back on. We ran through ours as well. We've talked about this before on the podcast, but Jeff's is also Al Wilson. And then Nick's is Leonard Little. So a lot of defensive guys in the room. Mine, being the youngest on the podcast, 30 years old, mine was Casey Clausen, the Iceman. That was kind of the foundation of my childhood there, watching him play quarterback. So we're going to go ahead.
All great.
Go ahead. Yeah,
no,
thanks.
all great ones. And Casey doesn't. Hey, I didn't like. I liked Casey growing up, but I didn't because I was like the spiked hair. What's this clown doing? And then you grow to really appreciate him, and it's like, hey, he was the Iceman.
Yeah. In hindsight, you're like, I'd kill to have Casey Clausen be our quarterback.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. The Peyton years, it felt like a downgrade, and now you're like, can we just have Casey Clausen forever? That would be
or Rick. Rick.
Can we have Rick come in and save us against LSU?
Oh man. Yeah. Well, we'll read. I mean, obviously, we want you to stay on. We love having you here talking stuff. We're going to actually transition to basketball and baseball talk, which we don't get to hear you do a lot. So we'd love to have you kind of listen to that or talk about that. I don't know how closely you follow the Tennessee basketball program or the Tennessee baseball program. I'm sure you do, being a fan. But if before we get into that though, we just want to thank you so much for being willing to come on and talk to us. And we love the work that you and Kyler do, and we're all avid listeners of Pancakes and Bacon, so we just appreciate it so much.
No, well, hey, it means more than you know. It really, really does. I appreciate it, and I take all those things that people say very serious. And so I appreciate it. I mean, it made my day when Jeff reached out. I still crack up. It was a first time, long time listener, first time DMer. I thought that was hilarious. So. I loved it. I do need to jump because it's already 10 over here. I got an early morning mark, but I will leave with this. I am a basketball guy. I don't want to stir the pot and then leave, but I grew up with Bruce. So Bruce was my coach. It's not that I dislike Rick.
My guy, yes.
It's not that I dislike Rick. He's a very good coach, but I can't say, in my opinion, great or better than Bruce because resumes speak. Bruce has got his 2 Final Fours. Rick doesn't have any yet. And I was very, very. I'm obviously a huge Tennessee fan, so I'm always locked into what the teams are doing. But I really, really love those Bruce years. And then we had some downtimes with Donnie and Conzo, but still watched. And then I think everyone of All Nations fell in love with the Grant and Admiral and Jordan and Josh, those teams. And it's like, whoa, like these are fun teams to watch. Like I'm not missing a second of any game. Random Tuesday night, I'm locked in. And then that we don't win. And those like hurt, man. Like those took some years off me. I was like, dude, we couldn't get 1 Final Four out of those. And like I was I'm all right, Rick, like it's just never going to happen. And then he gets Dalton Connect. And Dalton Connect's what I'd always wanted to see at Tennessee. We've had great players, but we didn't have a pro-style player like that. So those were fun watches. And it's like, didn't get our Final Four then. And I get it. That Purdue team we went up was really, really good. The refs that game, that's a very tough dynamic with Zach Edey. But I haven't felt as much of an emotional attachment the past couple years. I mean, Meshack, Double C, how those guys played last year, that kind of brings me back in. This year you got Nate Ament, which I enjoy watching him. But I don't know about you guys, but I watched last night and I almost just get like a little frustrated with this team. And I don't have that emotional attachment with this year's team like I've done teams in the past. So I don't know if that's right or wrong or what.
You're speaking our language.
Yeah, that's us. That's us.
Yeah,
and I'm the same way with like the Bruce Pearl. I'm the insane Tennessee fan, but like if he said I want to come back to Tennessee, but you got to, Rick's got to go, I'd have been like, let's get that done right now because that guy loved the program. He never said anything like Rick did about, well, if the money was the same, I'd be at UCLA. Like he always treated it like it was a big deal to have the Tennessee job. And I
He
miss those
he
years.
tweeted about the Memphis game like yesterday because it was like 20 years since we beat Memphis in that number 1, number 2 matchup, and he tweeted about it yesterday and about how much he loved his time there. And I was like, and then I had to watch us, be just abysmal against Missouri, and so I would make that trade in a heartbeat right now too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and listen, Bruce, we're sitting in a time now where it's like we think of all the good stuff Bruce did. I mean, Bruce still had some bad losses. I mean, he got smacked in the NCAA tournament. We had a Chris Lofton buzzer beater to beat like Winthrop when I think we were like a 2 seed. So Bruce, I'm not going to let him off this. I mean, each coach has bad losses and bad win or good wins, bad losses. Like it's pretty simple for me. Like in basketball, I'm not even saying a national championship because it's so difficult to win a natty in basketball with the tournament. But like we can't have at least one Final Four. And like Rick got let go at Texas because he couldn't get over the hump. And to be honest, he hasn't gotten over the hump here. And Jeff, I trust you. I never knew that even Rick even said that. Like that bothers me now that he proclaims if the money was the same, he'd be at UCLA. Like I didn't know. It was
the press conference when they brought him back. He said it in the press conference, dude. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. Like if you wanted to go to UCLA and do your thing, but we paid you more, like that's that's a tough pill to swallow even now. But it's nothing against Rick, and people want to argue Rick's the best basketball coach Tennessee's ever had or in Tennessee history. Well, he's been here longer. He has more wins. He has done a lot of good stuff, but that doesn't mean what Bruce Pearl did when we were nothing. We were a women's basketball school. The men's was basically non-existent, and Bruce comes and it was not as dramatic, but like what Kirk Cinetti did with Indiana, like he went from nothing to a championship. We didn't do quite that, but it felt like as fans, he gave us something. And so I think our age has something to do with it because we're growing up at that age. But yeah, Bruce will always be my coach. And I don't really think there's an argument that he's a better coach than Rick, even when Rick beats him in a regular season game or something like that. Like I just look at the Final Fours. Maybe I'm wrong, but
well, Reed, I think it's really comparable to Tony V with the baseball program. Like Tony's on the sidelines cheering on other teams. Bruce is in the student section with his shirt off. Like he really did do that before Tony V did it for baseball. And that's why we're always going to love him. And like you said, okay, coaching X's and O's is close enough that I just know as a Vols fan, I'm going to respond to the guy who loves the Vols.
Yeah. And I mean, Tony V won a natty. So I was going to say the only thing Elander can do now for us to like, and no one's ever going to forget Tony V, but only thing Elander can really do to be remembered almost more is like win multiple natties. And you know how difficult that is. I even feel silly saying that. And I'm not a baseball guy, so I don't really know it well, but like Rick could only become my basketball coach if he got us a championship. Like he took us to the Final Four and we won it. Then I'm like, okay, he won the ship. He can be my coach now. But like until then, like I still feel like Bruce is better and did more for Tennessee at that time.
And I feel like I feel like we're hampered now because he has this, quote, lifetime contract. So it's like there's no incentive anymore. Like I think Rick Barnes genuinely wants to win. I think he probably does and would tell you, like, I want to get over that hump. But subconsciously, there's just something about like there's no push or incentive for me to get better because I'm going to retire here. This is my last job, and no one's ever going to fire me because of the success that he sustained. And so it just feels like it'll only trend down from here. That's my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. I agree 1,000% that we are. He's never going to be bad enough he's never going to be bad enough to where Danny can be like, hey, like I got to let you go, or like, hey, it's that time to hit the retire. Like you got to go. He's never going to be bad enough to do that. Until he does it, I'm not going to believe that he's ever going to take us to a Final Four or win a national championship. And so, yeah, I agree. Like, I think this is just what it's going to be. And other people the last thing I'll say is like, I think people talk about like every year it's going to be like, is this the year he retires this year or he retires because of his age? But he's a coach. And what do coaches want to do? They coach. Like everyone always talks about, oh, I can't believe these coaches get fired and they don't just go sell off in the sunset with their major million buyouts. It's like, dude, these guys aren't wired that way. Like they coach because that's what they want to do. And so I think he'll coach I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if Rick's here as long as his health holds up. Like, I'm not surprised if he's here another 3 years easily.
Yeah.
Because like I don't see him just giving it up. I think he enjoys it.
Yeah.
So,
And he doesn't seem burned out by like the portal stuff. I think, that chased Jay out and some of these other guys out, but Rick seems to really enjoy fantasy drafting his roster,
Yeah, and I think that you kind of have to like it too. That like Rick is kind of the elder statesman in the college football and in college basketball, and everyone kind of like strokes his ego. And I'm talking like talking heads and all this, and he's always lived off so much of that pub that he recruited Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant speaks so highly of him, so it's like he can almost kind of sit back and always have a chance at some of these higher level guys because of the name. But it's like the trophy case doesn't withhold the name, in my opinion.
Just win.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Reed, we'll let you go, man. I know it's getting late, but one thing that needs to be said before you get off that I know these guys will agree with and echo is that we haven't mentioned this yet, but we really appreciate that you are openly serious about your faith, it being involves media. We're all three Protestant guys, so we understand the Bible a little bit better than you being a Catholic, but we won't hold that against you. But no, man, we really appreciate you. Speaking about your relationship with Christ and how you try to live a God-honoring life on your podcast, and we really appreciate that you're outspoken about that on your podcast. So,
for sure.
Oh well, I was saying how much it means to me that you mentioned that you guys listen and like the pod, but that that means more than anything to me. My faith is number one, and then my family, but. You probably do know the Bible better than I do. I still got to get better with getting in it and learning it more front to back.
We'll help you out, brother. We got Bible study classes. We'll get you in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, there's going to be some books in our Bible that aren't in yours, but there's a good reason for that, and we'll tell you about that.
It's actually the reverse, bud.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. It's actually the reverse.
There you go.
We're going to make sure. We're going to make sure Mac's at the Bible study as well.
Yeah, we're going to get you and Mac at Bible study.
Yeah. I got a great group of guys. Funny enough, there was 5 of us, and I was the only Catholic, and we had like 2 non-denoms. Maybe a Methodist or Protestant. I even forget. But we were all like, we were all going to Bible study together, and we ran it for about 1.5 years, 2 years, and then babies happen and people move and all that stuff. But I love that. I mean, I look forward to that time of the week so much and being around people, because I'm very hard to believe if you watch this or watch Pancakes and Bacon, because I talk all the time if you ask me a question, but I genuinely do love asking questions and hearing from people that know more about it than I do. And when I've always been serious, I've always had faith, but it got really, really serious. I've taken it more serious 5-6 years ago. And man, I bet people were so annoyed with me getting calls, just asking all the different stuff. So, I appreciate you saying that, and I'll talk to anybody that I can that ask about it or wants to hear why or whatnot from me. So,
yeah.
Hey,
yeah,
Reed,
absolutely.
This is off topic, but do you know the name G.K. Chesterton?
G.K. Chesterton?
Yeah.
Chesterton? I don't.
Yeah, so as a bunch of Protestants over here, we're big fans of G.K. Chesterton, who was a committed Catholic. If you get a chance to pick up some of his stuff, he wrote some fiction that's fun to read, but his book, is it called Heresy?
Orthodoxy.
Yeah, Orthodoxy he's just one of the brightest minds the church has ever had.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Yeah, does he do any podcasts, or is it all books?
No, he was like a pre-World War II guy, but I mean, just saw a ton of stuff coming down the pike that you're like, oh, this guy was super sharp because he predicted a whole bunch about the age we're living in. He's kind of timeless in that way.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Yeah, I don't mind to read, but I would rather throw the headphones in. And if I'm working out, hitting a walk, or doing a junk job, and I can, that's like my time to really listen. Like, I listen to a ton of pods. Most of them aren't even really sports anymore. So that's why I was asking that. So,
well, he's got a ton. I mean, you can find his audiobooks all over the place with that guy.
Okay, cool. Hey, man, it was my turn to thank y'all. I appreciate you reaching out. I've loved talking shop, and it's fun. I've missed doing it, so I appreciate y'all.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe
man.
come back and see us again. And you keep saying like if we do a season 6, we need that season 6, man. So you stay on the grind.
Well, yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right, man. All right.
All right,
Thank
bro.
you, Reed.
Thanks, man. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
man.
All right,
Come
listeners.
on,
So we're
VOLaTile.
gonna.
Wait, hold up.
Oh, sorry.
That dude thinks about Rick Barnes the way I do. Didn't know it. Loves Al Wilson. Loves Bruce Pearl. Y'all, I mean,
You
he's
guys
the
are
perfect
boon
guest.
companions. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew I had a kindred spirit there.
Yeah, that was a great interview. We just can't express enough gratitude towards Reed for being on here with us. I don't want to cut that short, but we are closing on an hour and 40
I just
minutes
wanted
here.
to point
So
out that's my guy. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So the last couple of things we had here, and it's not really a little bit, it's a lot because there's a lot to talk about across the board here with UT athletics. So we'll just kind of run through this as quick as we can, guys, and let's just try and keep it moving. But so to kind of round out the latest news that we kind of touched with Reed regarding Joey Aguilar. The other bit of latest news we had was just updates about the basketball and baseball season. So the basketball team beat Vanderbilt this past Saturday night. And they lost to Missouri. So we'll kind of talk about those games. And then the baseball team had a rough weekend, and they looked terrible against Kent State, but did beat Bellarmine in the midweek. So we'll jump into basketball first, guys, and just kind of talk about the Vanderbilt game. So Tennessee did beat Vanderbilt 69-65 on the road in Memorial Gym Saturday night. So Jeff, let's start with you, man. What stood out to you in that game, good or bad?
Grittiest win we've had this whole season. It was such a good win. I mean, we've got all the podcast archives, right? I was like, I just don't think this team is really good. I don't think that they've gelled. I think they've got major weaknesses. By the time we got to Vanderbilt, I was telling my son, dude, I was just wrong. Like the theory that Nate's going to figure it out, Jacoby's going to trim down the mistakes bad enough and be a contributing scorer. I was just wrong, and they've got it rolling, right?
Yep.
And it's just enough to get hurt again because then they go into
Right.
Missouri. It's pocket Kentucky all over again. It's the classic Tennessee loses a game they never should have lost, and somehow I've managed to let myself get talked back in just to have them, the hopes dashed to pieces the very next game. Whoa, Nick's so upset he left.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I thought. Oh, there he is. He's back. Yeah, I thought Tennessee played really well Saturday night.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't want to quote you. We can go back in the, like you said, podcast archives, but I feel like I remember you specifically saying at some point, Jeff, that you did not think this team could beat Vanderbilt. And I didn't necessarily echo that. I still feel like we are the better team, but obviously at that point in time, the trajectories were completely different. And Tennessee, found a way to win that game. And like you said, it was a gritty win.
Memorial's a hard place to win. I don't hate Memorial. Like, I kind of like the unique flavor of it. So I'm not one of these guys who's like, oh, Memorial's trash or whatever. Like, I like us being in that environment. It's a proving ground. And, yeah, I didn't think we could beat them. So then they gut it out and win. And now all of a sudden I've bought in all the fool's gold.
Yeah.
My take on that game, and this is I don't have a ton to say about these two games other than this. I'll just wrap up all my comments about both these games with this. So I really felt like that Vanderbilt game was a little bit of fool's gold. I was appreciative of the fact that we grinded it out, didn't quit. I did think it was a good win, but I really felt like a lot of that was because Vanderbilt couldn't hit shots that they normally hit. And I feel like we were hungover during that Missouri game, and it just continues to be the tale of this team that when they're just hot and cold, when they're just not consistent enough. When they play well, they can beat anybody, and when they play bad, they can lose to anybody.
Absolutely. So let's just for the sake of discussion, let's take the Missouri game off the table. Put yourself in your shoes. Saturday night we just beat Vanderbilt. Did this game make you feel differently about this team, or was it Jeff's kind of already said it was kind of confirmation that this team's better than he thought? He was wrong about some of his early season predictions. In that moment, Saturday night, what did you feel about this team, Jeff? Go ahead.
Just that. I thought they had gutted out a really tough win, doing the basics, like they were rebounding, hitting their free throws. Nate had that terrible missed dunk that was super embarrassing, but he came back and it didn't paralyze him, And I really came out of Vanderbilt thinking yeah, you were just wrong, Jeff. And they figured it out. This is a team that can win tough games. That's where I was at.
Yeah. Last question I want to have. There's one of our loyal listeners messaged me. This is my mom, and she said she said that the benches being on the baselines at Memorial Gym instead of the sidelines. She says that she thinks that's the gayest thing about Vanderbilt. Do you agree or disagree with that, Nick? What do you think?
I totally agree. I think it's ridiculous. I've always thought it was ridiculous, and I think it's incredibly fake and also gay.
Yeah, I've already said I kind of dig the localism of Vanderbilt's gym. And the gayest thing about Vanderbilt is their football team. So far be it from me to disagree with your mom. I'm just going to default to her.
I think it may actually be their baseball coach, but
yeah.
They literally had a quarterback named Gay Cutler. I mean, his name was Gay Cutler.
It's honestly, legitimately, it's the Vandy boys. That's the worst thing about Vanderbilt. That's the worst thing.
Gay.
Just to finish the thought, I take it as a principle to agree with your mom. But if that principle weren't in place, I would feel like what I said earlier,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move on to the worst of the two, which was Tennessee losing to Missouri on the road, 69-73. So same question. What stood out to you, good or bad?
Nick?
Everything's bad. Everything is bad. I felt like their defense was lacking in a way that's not typically, and I don't know, man. I can't put my finger on it. I feel like what I said before is just how I feel. Like when they come to play and they lock in and they play good defense, they can beat anybody. And when they don't show up and they're not mentally locked in, they can lose to anybody. So this team is a total coin flip for me. Like we're here at the end of the season, and I don't feel much different with their whole body of work at this point than I did when they beat Houston and turned around and lost to Syracuse. I just don't feel much different.
Yeah, or the two Kentucky losses.
What about you, Jeff? Anything stand out?
Yeah, I mean, this may be too black-pilled, but it goes to your point, Nick, about Vanderbilt. Missouri shot the ball terribly in the first half. Terribly. And they were getting good looks. So, we're pretty close to this game not just being like a bad loss, but us getting boat raced against Missouri. Now, whatever you do with that little point guard kind of blowing up out of nowhere, which some guy put on Twitter that there have been 3 teams whose players had their career high against Tennessee this season, which doesn't bode well for us. But if you treat him as an anomaly, you've still got that first half where if they'd have put half the points on the board that they could have just reasonably expected to, that loss could be a lot uglier. I came away with a lot of negatives.
Yeah. I will touch on a positive just because one thing that I saw in the game that stood out to me in a good way, and there wasn't much, was it just can't go without being said, Felix Okpara's performance at the beginning of the second half. I mean, he just went off coming out of halftime. Yeah, and that was just really, really fun. I mean, when Okpara is on, I've said this many times on the podcast, he is an elite big man. He is probably the best big man, pure big, Rick Barnes has ever had when he's on. And, he was on. Unfortunately, it just lasted for, 2 to 3 minutes, and then it was over.
Fortunately, everybody else was off.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah.
Hey, so Mac, I don't want to pick a fight over this, but since Joe's not here to represent,
No, it's perfect because my next question is, does Jalen Carey suck? Does he suck?
Yeah.
That's my next question I had.
Yeah, I'm just legitimately curious. So backstory for everybody who's not in our group chat. Joe Davis is pretty out on Jalen Carey. I've been pretty negative about him too. There was like a little moment of tension in the group chat where Mac was like, I'm tired of reading your dumb takes on Jalen Carey, and he just stopped responding in the group chat. So Jalen Carey ended up with 8 rebounds, no points. Into the game, do you still feel like you did there at the beginning of that like there's this irrational hatred for Jalen Carey? Or do you think that's not really going to cut it against Missouri?
Yeah, so I guess I'd try to be as obviously the way that he's shooting the basketball around the rim is not good enough. I can acknowledge, no, like anyone that watches basketball knows, like he's not efficient around the rim right now offensively. Now there was times at the beginning of the season that wasn't true, but in the last 2 months that has been true. He's not been efficient around the rim. He's not playing good enough offensively. My defense for Jalen Carey comes from, I guess, a little bit of I'm not just watching, does the ball go in the hoop, right? Like I'm not just watching that. What I'm watching is how Rick Barnes uses Jalen Carey in a similar way that he used Grant Williams. He runs the offense through Jalen Carey almost every half court set we have. Jalen Carey is in the high post. He's setting screens. He's passing the ball. He's directing Okpara where to go. He's to me, his value of the team is not in his points. I wish it was. He needs to be more productive. He would be better serving the team if he could figure out a way to finish some shots around the rim, go 1 for 2 from the. I mean, I'm not asking the guy to be a 75% free throw shooter. Just make 50%. And right now he's camped out at like 51, but it's like feels like it's getting worse. And I do think that he's not as bad as what some people are portraying, because I think he's doing a lot more that you're not going to see on the stat sheet. And also, he has he leads the team in offensive rebounds. Like the dude is working on the offensive glass, even though he can't score. And I don't know if you guys picked up on this, specifically in the Missouri game. Late in the second half, he stopped shooting the ball. He would get the ball in a offensive scoring position and would instead, run the offense. He would be passing the ball. Now, I don't want my bigs to be passing up on good looks. He needs to get out of his funk and just take good shots when they're there. Make or miss, you have to live with the outcome. But I do appreciate, it seems to me like he's aware of the issue and he's trying to be a good team player in spite of the fact that he can't see the ball go in right now. So I'm more sympathetic towards Jalen. I feel like he's playing better than what the stats show, but I can understand why people are frustrated. I can understand why people are out on him. I guess I'm just hoping that he can figure it out and turn it around.
Yeah, well, Nick, I want to get your thoughts on that too, but let me ask you this too, Mac, because I'm genuinely curious about it. So you're right about him stopping shooting the ball, but when I watched it, I counted 4 times in that game where I thought he was afraid to go up with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's going to get his shot blocked. He was afraid of a shot blocker. And that's different to me than a guy who thinks my shot's not dropping. It's best for me to impact the game, facilitating the offense and rebounding the ball. I came away from that second half thinking his confidence as a shorter player is just shot. And if I'm right on that, would I rather try to get what he offers through more minutes going to Estrella, Okpara, and Dwayne Brown? I think I would.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still interested in the project of Jalen Carey is only in against the other team's second big man. Maybe that gives him some more confidence about shot blocking and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I still think there might be a role for him in something like that. But right now, if he is scared to go up in the paint, I think I'd rather redistribute his minutes with the other 3 guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm on board with you there. I think the reason we haven't seen that as much as we would have is because of Estrella's injury stuff that he's dealing
Yeah.
with right now. The foot stuff. I think we would have seen Carey's minutes greatly diminish over the last 3 games, let's say. Estrella played for the first time against Missouri, but the 3 games before that he was out. I think you would have seen a huge dip in Carey's minutes had Estrella been 100% healthy that entire time. So I do think what you're saying, Jeff, could be true, maybe even likely is true. And I think that assuming Estrella is now back to 100%, now that he's played a little bit, now that he's continued to rehab and been in practice and is getting back up to game shape, I'm hoping and I'm assuming that, Rick Barnes is going to, jockey things around a little bit and try and get Carey some different minutes, just where he's playing against a second string or has a better matchup or something like that. The last thing I'll say specifically about this conversation, because Joe has mentioned this, and so he can correct me when he's on next time or whatever. But Joe is really high on Dwayne Brown. I am too. I think Dwayne Brown is your best all around big in the future. I think he's really good around the rim. He's got great touch. He's a good defender. He hustles. Like, I really like what I see out of Dwayne Brown. The issue with Dwayne Brown, and this is in direct contrast to what I said about Jalen Carey, is that he doesn't run the offense well. Like, he is good individually at scoring the basketball in the post, but he is not as good setting screens, rolling off of screens in a logical way, passing the ball. When Dwayne Brown gets the ball in his hands and he has to dribble to a handoff or he has to dribble to make a pass, he does not look comfortable. Jalen Carey looks very comfortable in that situation. And so that's kind of the thing that I see biggest difference between those two. If Dwayne Brown theoretically had that figured out, I don't think Jalen Carey would play much more, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I have nothing to disagree with you about on that. And the reality is they are pretty similar players. They're both like below the rim players.
right.
But as frustrated when Carey missed his free throws, I started getting real frustrated. And so I asked Grok, show me the plus minus for Carey and show me the plus minus for Dwayne Brown on the court. Well, Grok says that's hard to find for college stuff. It's a lot easier to find in the NBA because they do more advanced stats. But I ran the per 48 on both players, and they are remarkably similar. But basically, in every category, Jalen Carey is giving you more counting stats per 48. So, like, maybe he's on a downward decline, particularly if that afraid of his shot thing is true. But for right now, on the objectives that we can actually measure, it's hard to say Dwayne Brown should replace him. I'm probably more optimistic about redistributing the minutes. Or if you want to play Carey at the 5 and put Nate at the 4 and have Nate always in the corner so his defender can't creep down on him so much, I might be willing to try that too. So really what I'm trying to do here is kind of walk a middle path. Like, I think Jalen's not on a good trajectory, but on what you can measure, he's better than just a 1-to-1 swap for Dwayne Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick, I'll try to get out of this and actually let you talk. I meant to like 10 minutes ago, but I'm just really interested in this particular dynamic.
No, man, you're good. I don't feel as passionately as y'all about Jalen Carey. I tend to, I think, agree with Mac's take more. I think that he does a lot of good that's off the ball. And I think, I'm frustrated with the scoring generally. I don't think it's just Carey. And so to me, that just gets caught up in the broader narrative, which is that this team just goes through long periods of time where they struggle to score. And if we're relying on, no one's making this argument, so I'm not saying anybody here is, but if we're relying on Jalen Carey scoring to help us win basketball games, then we got much worse problems. And I think we do have much worse problems.
And this is the tragedy of Tennessee. Joe and I were talking about it over at his house last night. We build on defense. It's stuff we've talked about in the pod, right? We build on defense, but our defense isn't good enough to compensate for our inability to score for long stretches. That's been a theme for Barnes' entire tenure. But we're this vaunted defensive team, and that T.O., what's his name? I mean,
T.O.
literally
Barrett.
drove. Yeah, I mean, he just went to the rim at will. and
Yep.
it didn't matter who we put on him. Boswell maybe had a slightly less poor performance on him. But, okay, so we're a defensive team. Where's it – why aren't these teams consistently struggling a whole game to score on us? Why is it that we can only hold them down a little bit and then we go just ice cold for prolonged
I think
periods?
that's why I just wasn't as I was thankful to get out of Memorial with a win. Don't get me wrong. But I think I just was not as excited as you guys about that because I just felt like Vanderbilt missed a lot of shots that if they hit, we don't win that game. And Missouri did hit shots. And so,
only in the
maybe
second half, though.
Only in the second half. But and so maybe this is a good transition to the upcoming games, but like I don't feel good about playing Alabama, who scores a lot. I mean, I know we beat them the first time, but it's hard for me to think that they're not going to come in with a chip on their shoulder and be locked in and wanting to score a lot of points. And if they get above 80, I just don't see any chance that we can score with them. So I just maybe South Carolina, but I definitely don't feel good about Alabama.
Dude, that South Carolina collapse against Kentucky, we saw it because it was the game before ours. That's a hard one for South Carolina to come back from too. It wasn't just poor play, but it was like poor coaching. I don't know if that team's got much left in the tank. We better beat them.
Yeah. Gun to my head, I say we lose to Bama, beat South Carolina. That's what I would say.
Yep. Well, listener, that does lead greatly into we have 3 games left, 2 before we record again, so we'll kind of focus on those briefly. But upcoming games: Tennessee hosts Alabama at home Saturday, February 28th. That's this Saturday at 5 p.m. on ESPN, and then next Tuesday we go on the road to South Carolina. That's March 3rd at 5 p.m. That game's on SEC Network. So with 3 games left, I mean Tennessee was on the the double bye seed line for the SEC tournament. They were the 4 seed going into that Missouri game, and obviously that would drop you down. If Tennessee wins the last 3 games, I think there's still a good chance you get to that double bye, but you got to have some help at this point. The double bye is great in the SEC tournament. It's a huge deal, but at the end of the day, Tennessee is going to be a tournament team. They're sitting kind of solidly on that 5 seed line now. If you lost all 3 games and you didn't have a good showing in the SEC tournament, obviously you could play your way out of the NCAA tournament, but I think that's unlikely. I think Tennessee likely goes at least 1-2, probably 2-1 in the last 3 games we have left. And so I think everything is still in front of you. But as Reed said when he was on here with the podcast with us, you don't have a lot of faith in Rick Barnes when it comes to March tournament play. And so I think at this point for me, I would just love to see Tennessee finish the season strong, have a good SEC tournament showing. I would love to win the thing, obviously, and then just win it, make it to the second weekend in March if you can, and that would be great. That would be okay with me. I wouldn't say that's a success in terms of what I expected for this team at the beginning of the year, but based on kind of how we've navigated our way through the season, based on kind of me processing what you guys have been saying about the team throughout the year, I feel like that's probably better than expected. Given the kind of changing expectations throughout the season, I feel like you ended in a bright spot if you make it to the second weekend of March.
That's depressing, but that's true. And what you got to do as a Tennessee fan is think about Boswell, think about Dwayne Brown, think about Cade has another year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've got some young players coming back, and Rick's done a pretty good job of finding what he needs in the portal, and so you just. You're building for next year is probably what we're looking at.
I was literally about to say it's so depressing we're talking about next year because everyone sitting here knows we're not making it to the Sweet 16. If we make it to the Sweet 16, I'll be shocked. Same. I tell you.
Same.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, let's transition into maybe even a darker subject, which is the baseball team. So this weekend,
it's not as dark.
This weekend, Tennessee hosted Kent State. That's the Golden Flashes, the Fighting Nick Sabans, as they're lovingly known. Tennessee loses that series. Game 1, we won on a walk-off home run, 4-3. I believe that was Tyler Myatt who hit that walk-off home run. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. And then we lose games 2 and 3. Game 2, we lost 1-2. Game 3, we lost 5-9. The question I had here was, what the hell's going on? This team is I don't know. I don't know what to do with this weekend. That was the first weekend loss that Tennessee had to a non-SEC opponent since I think it was like 2016 or something like that. I mean, it's been forever since.
Hey,
I mean, it's been 10 years.
but look, Mac, you've got to be thankful that we freed up some more resources for the Lady Vols. Right? Could you
Golly,
just keep it in
Jeff.
perspective?
Goodness
Could you just
gracious,
keep it in
man.
perspective?
Yeah, let's just go ahead and talk about. I mean, we don't need to. I don't think hash out the details. I mean, we obviously talk about whatever you guys want, but I think the biggest thing. There's been a lot of talk about like, Elander sucks, right? Like he obviously is not the right guy. There's been some talk about like Elander's not the guy, and this is a bad decision to hire him. And it's like I don't agree with that at all. I think that's really dumb. Yeah, it's one weekend. Baseball is, as much as we talk about the football team having ups and downs and being volatile, the basketball team, baseball is a really hard sport to go. You're not going to go undefeated. Like you're just not going to do it. There's so many games. There's so many weekends. Now, obviously, Tennessee should have won 2 games this weekend. You drop one, okay, whatever. But you should have won 2 games. You didn't. So that's one game really that went the other way. One game. And so I guess I'm just left with like, I'm frustrated because it seems like our problems are in our bullpen, in the ability to throw strikes and getting timely hits. And that's just like fundamental baseball. Throw strikes, and when guys are in scoring position, you hit them in. Like it's as simple as that. It's elementary baseball. And I hope and I'm trusting that Elander is the type of guy that's going to be able to use his calm and kind of, leadership material that he has, use that calm demeanor and be able to right the ship going into a huge weekend series, not really a series, but huge weekend 3 games against 3 teams that, are going to move the needle a lot more than Kent State. But what do you guys think? Like, does this tell us anything definitive about Josh Elander or the team, or is it still wait and see? Where are you at with it? Jeff, you go ahead first.
Well, I actually don't have a comment because I totally defer to y'all on that. I have a question for you as like baseball guys. So Nick, why don't you answer and then I'm going to throw y'all a question.
Okay, sure. I'll jump in. I am not freaking out at all. Obviously I could be if we go into this weekend and we drop all 3 of these games. Obviously I'll be more concerned. It was his first weekend ever coaching as a head coach. And second. Game 3, you have bullpen issues. Bullpens are notoriously volatile, like they just are. They'll have a great weekend, and the next weekend you'll have 2 dudes that come in and blow a game. We had that even under Tony V. That's just baseball. There's nothing new there. And if you get a timely hit in game 2, in a game in which you had great pitching, then you win that game. So to me, I think the pitching was good in game 1, game 2. I had no problem with the pitching. Thought the starters particularly looked good. And I think as long as your starting pitching continues to look that good, I think the bats will come. And I think they'll start seeing it better. I think they'll start hitting the ball. Honestly, I would rather them struggle early on and have to figure out what their identity is, who their leader is, than to just have all these dudes that are winning just because, strictly on talent. I don't think we want to win a bunch of games the way we won game 1 and have some kind of false sense of confidence that makes you struggle more down the stretch. I'd rather them figure it out now against like Kent State's and against some of these, I don't think we'll probably beat UCLA, but maybe pitching can keep you in any game. And Coons look good, so maybe you do. But if they win a couple of these games, or even if they only win 1, but they're competitive and they're hitting the ball, I'll feel better. So I just think it's baseball. I think it's early. I think if they're still looking like this 2-3 weeks from now, I'll be real concerned. But I'm not going to judge their whole season or Elander on, one series against Kent State. I'm just not freaking out at all yet.
Yeah. Jeff, what's your question, man?
Well, as the non-baseball guy compared to y'all, I have been kind of just telling myself what y'all have said. Baseball's volatile. You can, Kent State's apparently a pretty decent MAC program, right? The one thing that I've heard that concerns me came from Eric Kane, who I have come to kind of appreciate his baseball takes. And he just said this in passing, so it's not like he's freaked out either. But he said it's a little concerning how much MAC level pitching held their batters down. That stuck in my craw.
Yeah, no. And so I agree. Like when you're playing against, a team that's worse than you, right? Like objectively, the talent's not as good, the coaching not as good, the resources aren't as good. Like everything about last weekend, obviously Tennessee was the better team. They just didn't play like it. The thing that's supposed to translate, especially in talent discrepancies like that, is your hitting. You should always be able to hit no matter what. Like sometimes guys don't have it. On the mound, they're not throwing strikes. That's baseball. That's part of it. Sometimes you make dumb errors in the field. That's baseball. It's part of it. But the reality is like you should be able to hit every and obviously guys go through slumps, but it felt like the entire team was not hitting well against Kent State. And I don't really know how to process that because obviously it could mean this team's not very good at the plate. It could mean that. I don't know for sure that's what it is, but I'm at a little bit of a loss because it's like we should be able to hit the ball against a team like Kent State. Then Nick played high school ball like I did, and when you're used to seeing 90 miles an hour every day in high school, and then you play a team in the midweek that's like not very good, and they've got a kid throwing 65, it's hard to adjust to that. But at the end of the day, good teams adjust to it. Like at a certain point, when you're second at bat, third at bat, wait back and think opposite field and drive the baseball. Like it didn't seem like we had any approach at all as a team hitting the ball this weekend. And that was really frustrating because that's the one thing we should be able to do against a team like Kent State.
Okay. So I'm not going to freak out about it either, but that would just be something to like file away under continue monitoring, right?
Yep.
Right.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last question we have about baseball before we kind of wrap up talking about actually, let's go ahead and move on to the Bellarmine game. So yesterday we did play Bellarmine in the midweek. We won 8-3. A couple notes I had, if y'all have anything else, feel free to add on. It was good to see Blaine Brown, get out of his little mini slump, his little whatever. He hit really poorly against Kent State, but he got a home run against Bellarmine. So I was glad to see him at least hit the ball and look like he knew what he was doing at the plate. And then the other thing I had was I thought Jay Abernathy in the midweek game specifically looks really good on the base paths, stole some bases. And obviously that's a strength that we know he has, but he hasn't done that yet this season. And so I was just glad to see him do that. Nick, did you have anything to add about the game last night?
No, I agree. I mean, it was just good to see. It was good to see some hitting. Obviously, I mean, Bellarmine is a far inferior opponent, but like you said, that's what you should do against an inferior opponent. You should score several runs at least. So, I will say this: I would probably be more in freak out mode if we'd have dropped 2 out of 3 to Kent State and then turned around and lost to Bellarmine. I'd have been like, oh
Absolutely.
my gosh. So, the fact that they had enough mindset to bounce back and score some runs against Bellarmine, that they took a midweek game seriously and, showed me a little something. So it's not much of a data point, but it's better than losing. So,
yeah. And bad midweek game for the bunt haters out there. If you hate the bunt, Jay Abernathy bunted for a single, pulled it down the first base line and beat it out. And obviously he's got the tools to do that, but I'm not a big bunt guy. I kind of prescribe to Moneyball theory a lot in baseball. But man, I was pretty hyped when I saw Jay Abernathy pull a bunt down the first base line and beat it out, force the pitcher to play his position. That was hype. So I
was just going to say, if our friend Colby Painter ever watches this episode, he's going to be upset at you. He's going to be very upset.
Exactly. I really think that this is kind of a little bit of a hot take here. Now that I've seen us play 2 weekends, I think that the most important, determining factor for the success of this team long-term is, can Jay Abernathy become an established leadoff hitter? If Jay Abernathy hits like he did against Bellarmine, and I know it's a midweek game against a bad opponent, but if he can establish himself as a consistent bat, getting on base, stealing bases, and he's your leadoff hitter, I feel really good about this team. If he continues to, have up and downs and is a great second leadoff at the bottom of the lineup at the 8 or 9 spot. That he's still serviceable there. He should still play. Obviously, he's been great defensively. Like, I still am glad he's on the team. I'm glad he's on the field. He deserves to be on the field. But I think that's a huge linchpin in the success of this team is, can he be a leadoff hitter? If the answer to that question is yes, I think we have a really good team.
Yeah, I think all that's super fair. I think it's a good take.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so the Vols go to Texas this weekend to Globe Life Field. We have 3 games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We play 3 different opponents. So Friday night, we play the number 1 overall UCLA Bruins. Saturday, we play Arizona State. Sunday, we play Virginia Tech. Tennessee will, after we drop this to Kent State, I don't know that we'll be favored against Arizona State and Virginia Tech. Before last weekend, you would have been for sure. So you should win 2 of the 3. I started the season off saying I think Tennessee's going to win on Friday night against UCLA. And I'm going to stick with that. I think Tennessee's going to find a way to bounce back from a bad weekend last weekend. I think we're going to play well. I think Tegan Coons is going to have a great night. I think Tennessee finds a way to win on Friday night. Does anybody disagree with that or what?
I don't disagree with that because of what I said earlier and what you just said. I think Coons, I think he's got good stuff. I think I think worst case scenario, we drop a close one just because can't get the bats going again. But I think when you have good pitching, you have a chance to win every game, and I think Coons will keep them in that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want them to punish UCLA for Nico. So just go out there and hammer them, boys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listener, thank you for bearing with us tonight. We had a great podcast, a lot of stuff to talk about, a little longer than our other pods. But we just want to say thank you to Reed Bacon. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you being on. And yeah, Nick, go ahead and plug our socials, man.
Well, before we do that, I'm guessing everybody knows, but we should take a moment to request prayer for the family of Wes Rucker. And I'd be lying if I said I was a fan of his, but I spent a lot of time listening to Wes and leaving behind a pregnant wife, a young kid. It's just unimaginably bad. Mm-hmm. I think Wes had a complicated relationship with Vol Twitter, Vols fans in general, but it's like the most Appalachian thing ever that this guy that got cooked on social media a lot, he passes away, and we've raised through the GoFundMe nearly $1 million for his family. Mm. And so, it's just that Appalachian thing of like, we can have the fight inside the family, but we take care of our own. And so prayers for his family, his widow, his children. But that GoFundMe is still up, and anybody listening who hasn't, if you could go throw them $5, $10, whatever, you're going to replace income, and money doesn't fix a lot of those problems, but it can take away other problems so that you can spend your time on the big ones. So It'd be worth going by the GoFundMe, and if you got a little disposable, maybe throw a cup of coffee in there.
Yep, Wes clearly. Like you said, Jeff, I didn't agree with all of Wes's takes on stuff, but Wes always seemed to engage people in good faith. When he disagreed with somebody and was arguing with them, and appreciated a lot of things he wrote over the years. He made a career switch just a few months ago, but listened to him for a long time on the Go Vols 247 podcast, and appreciated how hard he worked to cover Tennessee. And he did say a lot of things over the years, specifically regarding Tennessee sports, that was helpful insight. And outside of all of that, he clearly loved his kids. Like, if you followed him on Twitter, he would post about his son all the time, and his wife just found out. He and his wife just found out that she's pregnant again, and he was very excited about that. And that baby won't know its daddy in this life, and so it's really devastating and brutal. I actually drove just today right through the spot where he passed and thought about his family and prayed for him, and I can't imagine what they're going through. So definitely need to keep them in our prayers. So
yeah, thanks for saying that, guys. I didn't mean to gloss over that, but I appreciate you guys saying that. And thoughts and prayers mainly to the Rucker family for sure.
But This is the VOLaTile podcast, and we do all have a terminal illness that we share here, and so we can never forget that. We can never forget what ails us. Some of our listeners may know this, but I drive to Knoxville most days for work, and there's something very, very sweet about driving into Knoxville, and there's also, you twitch a little bit when you do, and so it's that schizophrenia that Jeff was talking about, and we all feel that. If every Vol fan's honest with herself, they feel that when they think about Tennessee Vols, they feel something sweet and warm and homey that they love, and they also feel some kind of deep pain in their chest, and they don't really know why. But we're all going through it together, and so we're glad that you've joined us if you're here, and we hope that you'll tell those others that feel that pain deep down about our podcast, so that they can go through it with us, so we can all go through it together. It's therapeutic. People need this, and so we're just trying to serve our fellow Vol fan here, and so please like and subscribe. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, and you can find us on YouTube. And we'll always be there. We'll always be there to walk you through it, to react, to try to guess what will happen, and it will be the worst possible outcome that you can think of. That is what will happen. But nevertheless, we hold out hope. We hold out hope that each and every day that pain will just be pushed down a little bit more. And so that's what we're here for. We're talking ourselves into beating UCLA on Friday right now, and so we'll see what that feels like next week.
That's right. Well, thank you, listener. That chest pain you feel is not a heart attack. It's just being a Vols fan. Remember, it's terminal.